Thank you. We're going to call the regular city council and the successor agency meeting of May the 13th to order.
They can't hear you yet. The mics aren't on.
Are the mics on? My mic's on.
Nope. No, they're not on yet. They're not on. Just a moment, he's gonna.
Got him. Okay.
Good evening. Welcome to the Ojai City Council and the Redevelopment Agency Successor Agency regular meeting of May 13th, 2014. Roll call.
Councilmember Blatz.
Here.
Councilmember Clapp. Here. Councilmember Lara.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith. Here. Mayor Strobel.
Present. And I'll ask Mayor Pro Tem Smith to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Follow me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we get into presentations, I'll remind that if anyone in the audience would like to address an issue that's on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card, give it to our city clerk, state your name and address for the record, limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I have a question. We have a presentation this evening in recognition of the student mayor for the day, Nico Dvorak. And honorary council member Savannah Sari. And there's probably the award or your story that won you the position of honorary mayor is something you want to read. But before we do that, I'm going to ask Mayor Pro Tem Smith to read a proclamation honoring the honorary mayor.
It would be my pleasure to do so. And it says, whereas the Ojai Youth Connect and Rotary Club of Ojai sponsored a Mayor for the Day essay contest, and whereas youth under the age of 18 attending school in the Ojai Valley were encouraged to submit an essay of 300 words or less describing what they would do as mayor of Ojai to support the youth of our valley, and whereas members of the Ojai Youth Connect and Rotary Club of Ojai reviewed and judged numerous essay submissions and selected Nico Dvorak as the winner for the Mayor of the For the Day contest, and whereas Nico is a fine, upstanding youth who eloquently expressed his wishes for our city, and whereas youth represent our most important resource as they are the future decision makers and citizens of our community, and whereas it is important to acknowledge the efforts that many young people have put forth to strengthen our community, and whereas youth should be viewed not only as the hope of the future, but as leaders and problem solvers for today, and should be valued for their unique idealism, energy, creativity, and the commitment they bring to address challenges in their community. Now, therefore, I, Carlin Strobel, Mayor of the City of Ojai, and on behalf of the Ojai City Council, do hereby recommend Nico Dvorak on this 13th day of May 2014. Is Nico here? Yay!
Nico, how about if you step to the podium? Did you want to read your essay or whatever?
Sure.
And then we'll go along
Okay.
to the next. You know what? Before you read it, why don't you go ahead and come up and receive your proclamation?
Good job.
Okay, now if you would read your essay for us.
Okay. What would you do if you were mayor of the day? What changes would you make? How would you create equality for all people? If I were mayor of Ojai, I would make changes to improve equality for all people. If everyone is equal, then everyone is happy. There should be no rich and then there should be no poor. If I were mayor of the day, I would help people get jobs, help local schools, and get rid of pesticides. When people lose their job, they also lose their home, car, and self-esteem. If I were mayor, I would create a committee that would help them get a new job. Then they would be happier and less homeless people would be on the streets. How would you feel if you were on the streets suffering from hunger while others were eating too much? I am a student at Topatopi Elementary School. I play club soccer, and at recess every day, I play soccer at school. At school, there's a great chance that I could be injured by the rugged dirt fields of gopher holes. Our local school needs money. My class has 32 students and only one teacher. If I were mayor, I would pass a city law that once a month, local businesses would have to share 25% of their sales to local public schools. My mom has been fighting cancer for over a year. I found out through the American Cancer Society that our area has a high number of cancers because of the farming fields. If I were mayor of the day, I would pass a law that no pesticides could be used. If everyone ate local organic food, except Jersey Mike's, they would be happier and healthier. Being mayor of Ojai would be a great responsibility. Changes for equality of the people would be my thanks to everyone who agrees. Being equal means everyone is happier. If I were mayor of the day, I would help people get jobs, help local public schools, and get rid of pesticides. Being mayor of the day would be like helping our town be a healthier, happier place.
We are fortunate indeed to have young people of your quality preparing themselves to take over the role of leadership for the Valley. Thank you. And Councilmember Laura.
Whereas the Youth Connect and Rotary Club of Ojai sponsor a Mayor of the Day essay contest, and whereas youth under the age of 18 attending school in the Ojai Valley were encouraged to submit an essay of 300 words or less, describing what they would do as mayor of Ojai and support the youth of our valley. Whereas members of the Ojai Youth Connect and Rotary Club of Ojai reviewed and judged numerous essay submissions and identified Savannah Moeller as the honorary council member of 2014. And whereas Savannah is a fine, upstanding youth who eloquently expressed her wishes for our city, and whereas youth represents our most important resource as they are the future decision makers and citizens of our community, and whereas it is important to acknowledge the efforts that many young people have put forth to strengthen our community, and whereas youth shall be viewed not only as hope of the future, but as leaders and problem solvers for today, and should be valued for their unique idealism, energy, creativity, and the commitment they bring to address challenges in their community. Now, therefore, I, Carlin Strobel, Mayor of the City of Ojai, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby commend Savannah Moeller on the 13th day of May 2014. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations.
And Savannah, did you want to read your essay for us?
Honorable Ojai City Council and fellow citizens of Ojai, I'm Savannah Moeller. I moved to Ojai in September of 2013 to begin my sophomore year at the Ojai Valley School. And ever since I moved to Ojai, I fell in love with this lovely town. But it's not perfect, and it would be an honor to be given the privilege to make Ojai an even better place for the people and for the environment. Firstly, I believe in education as the bloom of a flower, the starting point to a beautiful and healthy Ojai. To begin, my main goals are focused on the Libby Park. Firstly, it's been known in Libby Park that smoking of illegal substances has been increasingly common in the area. The park is a sanctuary for young children to interact and prosper. Thus, I plan to increase security in Libby Park and officially eradicate the issue. Adding to that, there have been a number of homeless people found living around the bench areas of the Libby Park. I believe we can simply help the homeless by transferring them to a nearby homeless shelter. This park is welcome to many children and families in Ojai, and parents should feel comfortable taking their children to the park. I was first inspired to enter Ojai Mayor of the Day when I met Kevin Griffey from the Thatcher School at the 2014 Ethics and Leadership Conference, who turned out to be Mayor of Ojai from last year. When he told me about it, I was so inspired and motivated, and I thought it was such a great opportunity to join the Ojai City Council, hoping I could get a chance to be next in line. Thank you.
Thank you. I am just so pleased to have our youth represented here and to hear the thought and the caring that's gone into their essays. I'm just really pleased. Thank you. Any comments? Okay. We're going to move on to our commission reports. And I have a speaker card, William Wyrick. He's with the Building Appeals Board.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. There's been obviously a fair amount of activity with the Building Appeals Board, and there are three things I want to address. I would prefer to address two of them in the commission reports, and another part is our decision with regard to Appendix L. I feel I could just, if the mayor is okay with that, I can not put it in this time, but speak to it on item number 3, if that's okay. Is that okay, Mr. Opel?
Yes.
Okay. The first thing is that Mr. Daddy and I were an ad hoc committee to investigate the interaction between the city and the second unit program with the sanitary district. We have attended a number of meetings. It was a 90-day ad hoc, and I want to give a short verbal report of what we found and a couple of things I'd like to bring to the council attention. Number one is that the sanitary district has launched a ramping up of the infiltration and inflow studies directly affecting and making the city of Ojai a study area. Back in March, they signed a contract for a design lateral pilot study with Phoenix Engineering, and they have bought a new video truck, and they are in the process are already, I'm not sure exactly on the timing, of taking a major street in the city of Ojai and looking at every single lateral on that street and determining the connections on that lateral, whether they're permitted or not, determining the condition of that lateral. The initial pilot study will fix those laterals using their inverted sock method that does not involve excavations at no cost to the owner. However, the policy of the sanitary district is to make the lateral to the Y, or inclusive of the Y, I believe, even under the street, the responsibility of the property owner, and the plan is to determine costs. At least this is what I heard from the city manager report, of the city, not the city manager, excuse me, Mr. Clark, the manager of the sanitary district's report. They will determine the cost, which they expect to be much less than having private plumbers do it, because they won't involve encroachment permits and street excavations. But after they determine the cost, they determine a program, they will be moving on to other streets inside the city of Ojai. And those will involve costs to homeowners to get these laterals fixed to address the inflow and infiltration matter. And also to address the illegal connection matter. As you well know, in order to get non-conforming permits for second units, the capacity charges are quite extensive, and even though financing options are available through the ordinance of the sanitary district. And I just think, I just want to make sure the council, understood that this is imminent. It's upon us. It's not something out there in the far future. They are going to be ramping up these lateral inspections, inclusive, by the way, of smoke tests to determine if there's illegal stormwater connections from gutters from houses and things like that going into the sewer district, into the sewer pipes. So that's the first thing I wanted to make sure that you knew, and that we certainly are concerned about, because obviously issues like this impact the second unit program, no matter what we might end up doing with changes to that program. An interesting comment was made 2 meetings ago, and I have no idea, and I cannot represent whether any fruit could be born from this comment. But they did mention at one point, well, if we really had a lot of new capacity charges coming in from some large numbers of non-conforming permits, maybe there would be some sort of possibility maybe of the capacity charges not being as high as they are now on a per unit basis. I don't know if that's possible, but I do think it's an interesting concept for the city to pursue, that perhaps if a certain minimum number of units could be guaranteed over a certain time period, perhaps they would negotiate something with the city to alleviate some of the costs on those capacity charges, which, as you well know, are upwards of $17,000 currently for a new capacity unit assessment for a equivalent dwelling unit. The second thing is that I wanted to bring up is that the sanitary district is attempting to make use of the emergency declaration by Governor Brown to take advantage of an early release of a large amount of funds for a drought mitigation grant stormwater capture and recharge project at the Weldon Canyon drying ponds. Why is this something affecting the city of Ojai? If the point of all this is to be able to capture when in fact it ever rains again, and when all kinds of water starts coming down the sewer because of inflow and infiltration, and it has to be treated to a certain standard before discharge in the river, or else you're facing substantial fines. If that large amount of stormwater intrusion can be captured in a deepened drying pond that up to 8 million gallons, that could also be a aquifer recharge project as well as a stormwater capture, then what doesn't go into the ground can be released in an appropriate way to avoid massive, expensive things like reverse osmosis increases in the capacity of the sewer plant way beyond what's required for just effluent. Right now, the sewer district has plenty of capacity for normal effluent. The big problem is when it rains, and the millions of gallons of rainwater that get into the system. And so that I would suggest respectfully that the city council consider speaking with the city manager about looking for an endorsement letter of this project. It involves a grant application to the state that's being fast-tracked, that if this goes in, it would be a benefit to the city for the reasons that I just mentioned. Avoids even further steep increases in capacity charges possibly for new connections to the city of Ojai and throughout the Ojai Valley. And I think it's a great project. They're going to attempt to be light on their feet and get this thing applied for quickly, get in front of the line for a 4-to-1 match to look at this thing, and I think it might be useful. They certainly think it might be useful to get an endorsement from the city of Ojai for this grant application. So those are the things that I wanted to mention with respect to the sanitary district. And then I also alluded to, and I believe that we're all the stars are aligning, and we are really going to start focusing again on, after we've spent a lot of time on the Ordinance 28, which I'll speak to later, refocus on the second unit program and how to best reform that and avoid some of the headaches and hiccups that we've seen in the city of Ventura recently.
Madam Mayor. Mr. Wyrick, I first of all want to thank you and all the members of the board for the amount of work that you've spent doing this, because I can fully appreciate the hours that it took to meet with the sanitation district to do that. And it wasn't just you and Mr. Daddy. There's other things that the board's doing in terms of meetings that I really do appreciate. My question is, though, when you talk about the $17,000 connection fee,
Yeah.
is that a connection fee that's assessed against somebody that's illegally connected to the sewer, or is that if anybody's putting in a legal unit, that's the connection fee?
For a new service letter, for a new connection, and again, Mr. Clark and Ms. Wall can correct me if I'm wrong, because they've also been in communication. My belief is that is the charge for a new connection. Okay? However, for a second, they define a equivalent dwelling unit as being a certain number of appliances, like having a kitchen, a bathroom, et cetera, no matter if you already have a lateral on that parcel or not. So they would interpret, please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Clark, that if you have a primary residence and you add a second unit connected to the same lateral, they want another $17,000 to be legal for new construction.
Now, is that just a fee for second dwelling units, or would that be a fee for something that would be something less than that, like a guest house?
If it has a kitchen, to be the most plain and about it, if it's got a kitchen, it's $17,000.
Okay.
If you are trying to get, for example, a non-conforming permit on an existing second unit, that's one option people have. You can yank the kitchen.
Okay.
And then they would give you they would say it's legal without paying the $17,000.
All right. Thank you very
Mr. Clark,
much.
am I misrepresenting anything?
My understanding is the same.
Okay. Thank you. And again, thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Mr. Clark, is a letter of endorsement, is that something we need to put on a future agenda for the council to?
Sure, let me speak to the general manager and see what the timeframes are. If there's no objection from the city council, I can go ahead and provide a letter of endorsement if there's a deadline that precedes our next council meeting.
And I see Christine Golden is here. Would you like to say? Christine's with our Arts Commission.
Yes, Arts Commission report. Well, I want to start out by talking a little bit about the brand-new exhibit that's on the walls behind you. And this is an exhibit by Pamela Grau and Jeffrey Crusoe. And Pamela comes from a family of artists. Her grandfather was an architect and her father was an illustrator for Disney Studios. And but she's gone off in a really different direction, and you could almost call her exhibition Sakatumi. So if you turn around over there, you will see, I don't know, I haven't counted them, but those are discarded socks that have been applied in this grid-like formation behind you. And again, you know, the public is welcome to come to these exhibitions. There's other hallways over in this area of City Hall, and you will see some of Pamela's other grid work that she's done. Some are made out of little tiny balls of clay that she has affixed to a canvas. And then when she goes camping, she collects twigs. And there's quite a large piece that is just it really is an incredible thing to look at, the twigs and how she's put them together into these pieces. So this is certainly what we would call modern art. And then Jeffrey Crusoe, he has a background as an architect. And what he's doing, and then this piece over here behind you, Carol, is one of Jeffrey's pieces. This is a dual show with these two. You'll see graphite drawings on plaster on some pieces down the hall. And here you're seeing relief wall panels, and he's reclaimed wood and reclaimed canvases to put these pieces together. So both of these artists are using reclaimed materials in their work, and they're rather new to Ojai. They're already been accepted into the Ojai Studio Artists, and they're considered really at the top of their field. So we're just so happy that we can exhibit them for the next couple of months. So I did want to tell you about that. There will be a reception, by the way, for the artists on June 19th, starting at 5 o'clock, from 5 o'clock until 6:30, right here, before the Arts Commission meeting. And now we'll put that aside, and we'll just give you a little brief update on what the Arts Commission is up to. We're going to have the second of two meetings to finish our 5-year goal writing process. And that's going to be this Thursday night. We're actually meeting early at 5 o'clock, starting our commission meeting early. And we've brought in a consultant who's leading us in this process, gratis. There is no cost to us, Ray Sullivan. It's been really so far a very exciting process to go through, to consider where we've been at the last or the first session that we had, and now at this second one, to see where it is we want to go. And we're dreaming very big. So that's exciting, and of course, all of you are invited to watch it or to be there. Also, before you, very soon, will come our nominee for the Lifetime Achievement in the Arts Award. I think that all of you will be absolutely delighted with who we've chosen. I'm not going to say the name out loud because even though the Brown Act makes it really hard to keep a secret of this, we do like to try to surprise the selectee. We also are just entering our next round for this year of the grants that are written. So we'll be taking a look at those over the next couple of months and making our recommendations to you. We have some new acquisitions that will come before you, probably in the consent calendar, for you to accept pieces by, maybe I'm not supposed to say, so I won't say who they're by, but they're just they're really fantastic pieces by an artist that we all want to have as part of our collection here at City Hall. I think you'll be very pleased when you see those and you hear who it is. And we are also launching right now at this time the second of the student mentor programs, and we're really excited about that and about the artists that have applied to be a mentor. So you'll be getting more updated information on that as the students and the artists are selected for that program, the second year of this program. And finally, we will be coming before you very soon with a budget request. And I took the words of our former Mayor Blatz to heart. He said, ask for more. So we did. So I hope that that's going to be okay. We have our fingers crossed. We've asked for more. We really want to go places with what we're doing and put Ojai on the map as a destination for serious art lovers. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other commission chairs or members in the audience that I'm unable to see? Okay. All right, the next section of our agenda is public communications, and this is for items not on the agenda. And so if you would like to speak on unagendized item, please prepare a speaker's card, give it to our city clerk, limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I have several, and they've probably been shuffled about since they were handed in. Pat McPherson.
Good evening, Pat McPherson. I'm here tonight representing Ojai Flow, who all of you, I think, know who it is. And I'm going to read a letter which was sent to all of you, but I would like the public to know about this. It pertains to Golden State, and it pertains to how well they are prepared for the drought and the fire season that we have before us. I think everybody can agree it's going to be a little bit unusual this year, not like in the past. So as I read this letter, you might want to reflect on that as the subject. Golden State Water Company's main water line broke at El Paseo in reminiscent of last summer's systems failure that left a substantial portion of the city without water or fire protection for several days. And excuse me, I'm just going to read this, so not edit in between. Drought conditions have created unusually high fire danger this year. Is Golden State's water system capable of protecting Ojai? Is Golden State prepared to respond to an emergency in Ojai? These are major questions. Golden State response to last year's catastrophe water system failure and the lengthy water service outage leaves the residents of Ojai in doubt. Golden State did not have sufficient local personnel or resources to effectively respond to last year's emergency. What has been done to improve emergency response capabilities? What has been done to prevent citywide water outage? I don't know. And I don't know if anybody else does. Golden State spent many of ratepayers' dollars on a new well to provide a backup water supply. Is this well operational? A new pipeline was constructed to deliver water to the city from San Antonio Creek. Is the pipeline in service? Why are the fire hydrants on Grand Avenue near Gridley covered up? I don't know. Ojai Flow has heard these concerns and questions from many of Ojai residents about the reliability of Golden State water system. As our representative and the franchisor to Golden State, we request the city of Ojai to require Golden State to submit to the city the results of all of the most recent flow tests conducted in the city and in neighborhoods where tests have been conducted in the past 5 years. Also, the city should require Golden State to submit a report on the status of their current wells or established wells, as well as the new one that they asked money to build. Since we are all in the fire season, we ask that the above be provided in the next 30 days. This is not something that we feel that you can table and look at and get finished about September. This is a major issue. It's a major concern that many people in Ojai have. And we have demonstrated, or Golden State has demonstrated, that they have not had the support in the past. So I'm reading it tonight so you can ask any questions. The idea is not to set the city up to fail. The idea is to find out if Golden State has done anything and are they capable of doing it. And if not, what are we going to do?
Thank you, Pat.
Madam Mayor, I would like to ask the city attorney if these are questions that we could appropriately ask of Golden State to supply this information to us or not.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, we definitely can ask that information of them. It's not not all fours within our franchise in terms of regulating them, but we absolutely have the right to request that information as everybody else does.
And are we allowed to put a time frame on it
Of course we
for
can.
response?
Yeah,
Okay.
Of course we can.
I don't think that's an unreasonable request, and I would like to ask my fellow colleagues if they would agree.
I agree.
And Madam Mayor, members
I
of the council.
agree, but is this something we need to put on an agenda for discussion?
Yes, sure.
The answer is to take an action tonight. Yes, we need. We can't give direction tonight. I was going to add. We can also. I would also recommend at the same time requesting that same information from the PUC, who has direct regulatory authority over Golden State, and they do have reporting requirements. And if you remember last year with the water outage, they had to file reports with the PUC, which we will get copies of. Mm-hmm. And lastly, I'd also engage the fire department in this too, because they have fire service jurisdiction over them also, and they monitor fire service. So I think the PUC has information. We can ask for Golden State, and I would also partner with the fire department. You can't take action tonight to direct it, but I think the city manager is free to take action on his own to request information. We and I have already discussed that, and our intention is to submit such a request to Golden State.
Madam Mayor, that was going to be my next question. Mr. Clark on his own can freely request the information and go to the fire department and things, and doesn't necessarily need to get explicit direction from us. But if we want to put it on a future agenda for discussion, I would recommend that we do that.
Okay, and I would like it on a future agenda so that the council may be updated, and so could the public.
I did actually prepare a letter along these lines, and I've talked to Golden State Water about it, so they're expecting it, and I think they will provide some information. So my intent would be to go ahead and send the letter, and then we can give you an update on the status at a future council agenda.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I do have, and I don't know if this would be appropriate item to include the OBGMA, because I know they're doing studies on the basin, the water basin. I don't know if that's appropriate with this item, or if that would answer some of the questions with the drought.
It may come out to be a problem, but I think I would wait personally and see what they say if there is a problem, and if they can't supply the same water they did a year ago, I think then it might tell us what other questions have to be asked. And the other thing is, I've talked to Steve Bennett's office, and they are going to talk to the fire people in the county and see what they can do. And also, just for your own information, they have a franchise agreement with Golden State also that is expired. So they have a legal right to ask them too what's cooking with this, with with the houses in our district. So let's just keep that all in mind, because what we've heard does not sound good. We've heard from Casitas that Golden State is buying an excessive amount of water from them. Now, if that new well's in operation, that's really a concern. If it's not in operation, it says to me, as a novice, that maybe they have some wells that aren't working. And we need to know that, because according to our experts, it says if we have a fire, it's not going to be the fire department who's going to hook up to the fire plugs and put out a brush fire. They're going to stay back and watch the houses and try to protect certain houses when they can. But it'll be the residents that are out there squirting down their houses that'll cause that system to drop in pressure in the volume to go up 3 to 4 times what it is normally. And this system, we know, is very fragile. We see it breaking all the time. And in this recent break, the question is, was that John Mansfield plastic that they should have pulled out? It's on a recall. Did they do it? Yeah, I've heard also stories that rocks were on top of there. That's not right. But they didn't go back further and see if there's rocks all the way along that pipe. So they're doing everything on a minimum basis because they're waiting.
Pat,
okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith has a question or comment.
Actually, I just wanted to say, Pat, I'm so glad to see you back in fighting form. All right.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments for Pat? All right, and we're
Thanks,
squared
Pat.
away on this. This will be on a future agenda to give us an update. Okay. My next speaker card, William Wyrick. And Mr. Wyrick was so considerate to send all the council members a list of the things he intends to address tonight. That makes it really nice.
I am speaking as a citizen, not as member of the Board of Appeals. I'm speaking as a citizen and a resident on Blanche Street. I have a concern about due process being followed with a conditional use permit on the Emerald Iguana. Here's my understanding of the situation. The existing CUP, as amended in '02, has various stipulations. About 8 cottages rented for a minimum of 2 nights. All guest registration and check-in shall occur off-site at the Blue Iguana Inn. All proposed lighting shall be hooded and directed to reflect the light away from adjoining properties. And the use herein approved shall remain exactly as described in the application and permit approved by the Planning Commission unless and until an amendment to this CUP is approved. I am not here to speak about any of the issues regarding how the Emerald Iguana wants to change the CUP. I am not speaking to that, I repeat. What I'm speaking about is the process. A previous community development director, apparently in March of 12, issued a building permit for a renovation at this project, which included on the plans, clearly labeled lobby and reception desk. The report to the Planning Commission was done by director's exemption. The Planning Commission was not aware that this involved a CUP. And the director's exemption description references only addition, interior remodel not visible from street or adjacent parcels and does not reference the current CUP. I'm a bit concerned that a building permit would be issued with a CUP being involved without the Planning Commission even being aware that there was a CUP issue. Arguably, certainly, if lobby and reception desk is labeled on the plans, you would think that that would be referenced to the Planning Commission and not kept from the Planning Commission by a director's exemption. And again, I'm not talking about the current Community Development Director. I want to reiterate. And so therefore, I would think that given that the future agenda item for the Planning Commission agenda only describes the lighting and not the other CUP issues, I would think a sense of the council perhaps might be to direct that there be a full CUP review. I think at a future Planning Commission meeting, I've spoken to a couple Planning Commission members, they had no idea this had gone on. And I believe that it's important that everyone be treated the same in this city with regard to conditional use permits and it not depend on what your name is. Thank you.
And that's something I would prefer we not get into discussion about Is that agreeable? But I would like our city manager to, did you receive the follow-up or the?
I did not, but
I'll give you mine.
Okay.
And I'd appreciate if you would follow up specifically regarding due process and the things that he's mentioned. Is that satisfactory to the council members?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Our next speaker, Tara Jeffrey.
Mayor Strobel, we wanted to ask if we could reverse.
I was going to say, you're not Tara.
I'm not. I'm Jane Stiller. Can we reverse that position? Can she go after me?
All right. You want to speak first?
I would like to.
Okay. Jane Spiller.
Thank you. I'm following up on what Bill has said. I agree with his comments. I live at 202 Pauline Street, right next to the Emerald Iguana. I'm here to ask for your help. I live in a residential neighborhood, but strangely, I am next door to a hotel. It has destroyed our peace and quiet. The Emerald Iguana operates, as you know, on a conditional use permit as an extended stay property. The original application proposed extended stay cottages for guests staying from several weeks to several months. It was approved for 5-day, 4-night stays over strong objections from the neighbors. It quickly began morphing into a hotel. The owners obtained a reduction to 2-night stays. The neighbors appealed and lost. Conditions were placed on the project so that it wouldn't disturb the character of our neighborhood. Off-site check-in, no one-night stays, and an on-site manager. For many years, the conditions have been violated. Cottages have been broken up, rooms locked off. Instead of the permitted 8 units and 1 unit for the on-site manager, the owners have been renting 13 to 14 units. The noise and dust from traffic is intolerable. Waking us up, car doors slam, guests talk loudly in the parking lot. Lights required to be shielded or hooded keep us awake at night. People say, but it's such a nice hotel. Yes, it is attractive. If the owners had developed this hotel on commercially zoned property, Ojai would benefit greatly, but they did not. In 2012, a dumpster arrived and I discovered construction happening next door. I asked the city what was going on and was told the Emerald Iguana had been given a building permit. I could not believe the neighbors had not been notified. I could not believe we had not had the opportunity to review the project. The laundry room was extended right next to my property line. A bedroom was turned into a lobby, reception desk, and areas for commercial sales. New unshielded lights were installed. Now the owners have requested that all the conditions be removed. The city does not seem to have an institutional memory. Staff comes and goes and changes so frequently. The city even issued the building permit to a hotel, not an extended stay residence. I have met with city staff many times, and I commend city staff for addressing many issues and building violations. I would like the inspectors to focus now on the conditional use requirements as well. The city has not yet signed off on the building remodeling permit. This provides an opportunity for the city to review the operation, consider the residential neighborhood, and enforce the conditional use permit. Neighbors have written letters asking for a full review. Instead, we've got this item on the agenda for Tivoli lights. So I second Bill that it's appropriate for the city council to require that to be a full review. When I asked the city when they were going to put a CUP review on the agenda, I was told the city is not going to do that. They said that is voluntary on the owner's part. Really? Voluntary? So I'm asking you, the city council, to postpone the hearing and to require the full review. I can't move my home, which I built, and which I love, and where I raised my daughter. I wish that I could. I need your help to improve the situation.
Thank you. Mr. Clark, that's 2 speakers. Now I would really like staff to do an in-depth review and to consider the comments that Jane Spiller has made.
So I would like, we have been working on this for quite some time. I believe all these matters are going to come before the Planning Commission and are going to be appealable to the City Council. So it's better that you let that process happen so that you're an unbiased body when it does come back to you.
And that is the reason that we're not really addressing any of the issues that the speakers have brought up. It's not that we don't hear you, it's not that we don't care. It's just that we will be the appellate body, and so we need to protect that. Councilmember Clapp, did you have a comment?
Madam Mayor, I was just wondering if there's anybody else that wants to speak to this matter, and if that's the case, are you saying that we want to cut off speaking on this matter, or
No.
that?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I simply said that's 2 speakers on the same subject, that so far. Tara Jeffries?
Hi, my name's Tara Jeffrey. I live at 512 North Blanche Street. I'm going to be your 3rd speaker on the subject here. I find it interesting that just the issue of the Tivoli lights was sort of picked out of the entire conditional use permit issues in general for this and put on the agenda for next week's meeting. I'm going to speak to that. I think I have the longest history with this issue. I'm here to speak personally and on behalf of my neighbors who all live next to the Emerald Iguana Inn. It was 14 years ago that our neighborhood got together a petition of some 60 neighbors in opposition of the iguana being placed in the midst of our neighborhood. After 2 appeals, which we lost both, the project went forward, and we were told by the city that our fears about noise and added traffic would be solved by a conditional use permit. Now with added illegal rooms, on-site check-in, violations of required minimum night stays, which they've been caught doing multiple times, lighting agreements, all necessary aspects of a conditional use permit designed to minimize impacts on our neighborhood, our fears have come to be realized. This is 14 years later. So this is to notify you that we've engaged an attorney and are prepared to file a public nuisance lawsuit against the Emerald Iguana with the Superior Court of Ventura County. We're requesting that the agenda item regarding the Tivoli lights be taken off the agenda of next week's Planning Commission meeting and re-agendized for a complete CUP review within 30 days. If this is not done after 30 days, we'll ask the court to force compliance of the conditional use permit. This conditional use permit was originally crafted by the Emerald Iguana, for which the city of Ojai has not enforced the conditions. We would not be pursuing these measures if the city was doing their job in enforcing the conditional use permit. Thank you.
The next speaker is Prim Childs.
Would you mind if I sat to make this presentation? I have trouble.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you mind if I sit down to give this presentation? I have trouble.
He's got to get a microphone.
If we can get you a microphone. Oh, here we go.
I was asked just a week ago to help maybe organize a run that's coming through town. It's an international run, and they're coming through on June 9th. So they asked if there's they usually put on different agendas for meeting with the city council members, mayor. They're going to be meeting with the mayor of Ventura, and that'll be at 9 in the morning, and then they're going to be in Ojai around 1 o'clock. So we were just wondering if there's any interest. You can see by the flyers there of what they do. It's a very well-known organization, and they do a great job of promoting peace. And I think the flyer will speak for itself. So I don't know what to, I just want to make you aware of it, that they were coming. So, and if it's okay to have some kind of meeting with them to honor what they do, and then they can honor what the city does in return.
Mr. Clark?
Could you explain again when they will be here?
June 9th, which is Monday morning, or Monday afternoon, I should say, probably around 1 o'clock. And I know that Libby Park is rented already for the music festival.
So so maybe we should talk tomorrow and
Yeah.
get some more information. There's a certain process that we go through for permitting events, which I thought you'd
I
been.
didn't know how to approach it exactly, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I could do that.
We'll get in touch with you then tomorrow and work that all out.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mr. Clark, do you have a contact number for?
Yes, he has contacted our offices, so we do.
Okay, great, so I'll just wait.
Deborah Pendry?
Thank you, Mayor Strobel. Council members, Deborah Pendry, 309 Riverside Road, representing the Ojai Valley Green Coalition. As you may know, the City of Ventura is scheduled for a first reading of a proposed single-use carry-out bag ordinance this coming Monday, May 19th. Amazingly, Ojai is still the only city in Ventura County to have an ordinance, and the county is waiting for more of the cities to pass an ordinance before taking its next step. The coalition is asking the Ojai community to write to Ventura City Council members and/or come to Monday's meeting to share their experience on the local single-use carry-out bag ordinance that went into effect July 1st, 2012. I'm confident those are mostly positive. Information can be found at cityofventura.net or call the coalition and we will help you with contact and meeting information. That number is 805-669-8445. I recently spoke with the former CEO of Ventura County, Johnny Johnston. He has lived in the Ojai Valley for 40 years. He's an avid walker and makes a habit of picking up litter where he walks. He shared with me before the Ojai ordinance, he would find plenty of plastic bags along the way to put other litter into. Now, he has to bring his own plastic bag because there is rarely one to find along his walking route. He said it has been most noticeable on the bike trail around the Vaughn Store and Shopping Center at the Highway 33 and Highway 150 intersection. From our vantage point, this is a great success story. And given we are coming up on our 2-year anniversary, the coalition would like to request an agenda item sometime in the summer to review the ordinance, analyze the reporting done so far by the stores, along with getting feedback from management, and share further on the success of this ordinance. And the coalition would like to extend itself to help if needed with the information gathering. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, William Ulrich.
William Ulrich, 487 Gridley Road. 2 matters. One is I would like to protest and take opposition to Ojai's apparent intent to follow in the footsteps of the City of Ventura in enacting the application of current Title 24 energy requirements to second unit. If you want to gut and basically render absolutely useless any potentiality for legalization and support from the property owners, you will follow and embrace the debacle that has occurred in the City of Ventura relative to Title 24. That is energy efficiency requirements. They have to revise their own adoption. Why does Ojai use any standards from other cities, counties, entities? I hear this constantly reflected. Santa Barbara. Ojai is in Santa Barbara. Ojai is unique, as I think I've also heard for years. I think Ojai needs to follow that uniqueness and look at everything specifically and not adopt things that some contract staff have brought in and use as an exemplar of something that is already formatted. And then, curiously enough, it doesn't work here, and in this instance, it's not working in Ventura either. On another matter, which also relates to building and planning commission activities, this is specific to 510, 512 East Ojai Avenue. This is an eyesore. This is a property that has been engaged in an architectural review that has been maintained in the city files since 1994. So it's coming on its 20th year anniversary. For an architectural review 94-16 and a grading permit. And it's still being reviewed. There were 10 extensions issued by the Planning Commission between 1994 and 2001 and 12 additional extensions through 2013. Numerous design revisions up to and including the present restaurant brewery proposal. It's not maintained the existing architectural review. Everything's changed. There have been numerous requests that this particular property be maintained, weeds abated, damage, windows not boarded up, etc. And up to and including the most recent, where my review of the files indicate that Mr. Clark, the city manager, through the community development director, has extended the validity of this architectural review and grading permit for 1 year through September 2014 in exchange for a cleanup within 90 days of October 2013. I don't know if this even occurred because within that 90-day period, time frame. My question is, why is there a lack of adherence to Ojai's planning requirements and ordinances, a lack of transparency, and insufficient public input? The extensive history of non-compliance relative to the property maintenance, maintaining of an eyesore and a hazard on Ojai Avenue is less than the city deserves and not something that this city should continue to maintain. We have on Ojai Avenue a lot of eyesores, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with. I think I still have 50 seconds.
No, you're just about done.
Okay, excuse me. Okay, then one simple question. Why the special treatment for Mr. Miller? Thank you.
Okay, that's all the cards I have for unscheduled items, speakers. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to comment? Mayor Pro Tem Clapp? Councilmember Clapp? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Thank you very much. I unfortunately have to speak about a very serious topic. There's been a breakout in Ojai of a very bad disease called whooping cough or pertussis. It is, if you get it as an older child or you get it as an adult, you usually survive, but you are ill for about 6 weeks, very, very ill. If you get it as an infant under 6 months, there's a very good chance you will die. It is vaccine preventable. What happens when enough people who don't believe in vaccinations do not get their kids vaccinated, you may get a pool of 15 or 20 kids who one picks it up, and the rest pick it up, and it becomes extremely dangerous. Please check that your children are vaccinated against pertussis. It's the DTaP in the DTaP vaccine. Be careful that if you are that children who come into contact are vaccinated too. The next vaccine I'm very concerned with is rubella. Rubella also levels are going down. It's a very, very minor disease in people. It's called the German measles. You get it as part of the MMR. However, if you're a pregnant woman and you happen to get rubella in the early months of pregnancy, there's a very good 50% chance your child will be born profoundly deaf and need congenital heart surgery to survive. These are very serious issues. Please make sure your kids are vaccinated. Rubella, before the vaccine came out, I'm pretty old, but the mothers used to have what we called rubella parties, and they dragged their teenage girls to someone's house who had it to make sure that they got the disease before they were of the age to get married and get pregnant. So again, this is extremely serious. Hepatitis B and hepatitis A now have vaccines. If people get vaccinated, we can hope to see those diseases disappear. Don't let your kids travel when they turn 18 or without getting these vaccines, because that's when they're most susceptible, is when they go out of the country. I was shocked to hear about the pertussis outbreak. So everyone really keep in mind, you need to get your kids vaccinated. And sometimes I wonder, the people who don't believe in vaccines for their children, do they get their dogs vaccinated against rabies, or are we going to see rabies come back? So really, this is very serious, so thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, I have a question for Councilwoman Smith. How old does a child have to be before they get vaccinations? Like for
different vaccinations they start at 2 months.
So if a child is under 2 months old, 2 months or younger, and comes in contact with a child whose parents refuse to vaccinate them, that child could be subject to getting the whooping cough, correct?
I'm not so worried about the child. I'm worried about the child who is 3 years old, who gets it from somebody in his play group or whatever, or the play group child comes home, and they give it to the infant, because infants will die.
Right, because the infant hasn't had it yet.
Right.
So it isn't just you jeopardizing your own child by not giving a vaccine to the child. You're jeopardizing somebody else's child whose mother and father may want to vaccinate the child, but they aren't of age to do that. So It's not purely your own child you're jeopardizing.
You're jeopardizing your whole community. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. The next item on our agenda is the consent calendar, and I have a couple of comments before I ask if there's anything that should be pulled or et cetera. And that is item 1D, regular city council meeting of April the 22nd. We have an amendment to that item, the Pledge of Allegiance. There was a minor correction. Mayor Pro Tem Smith led that. And the next to the last paragraph on page 1, we corrected a council member's name on that. So those were minor corrections. And on item 1M, I'll just read this. There is a bug just flying all over. I'll just read this for you. This is 1M. The California Active Transportation Program grant opportunity will not be able to be submitted by the May 21 round 1 deadline, as a Caltrans approvals cannot be obtained in time. Staff will support the recommendation of the administrative report with a modification that the grant be submitted in the next round or 2 of the grant calls after obtaining required regulatory approvals, approximately 6 months to a year. And so, is that something we need to pull? So we should pull 1M?
You don't need to pull it, you just need to approve it with that understanding.
Okay. Are there any items on the consent calendar council would like pulled or comment or?
Madam Mayor, without any further comment, I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Roll call?
Blatt?
Yes.
Clapp? Yes. Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing, adoption of an urgency ordinance extending until April 7th, 2015, a moratorium on the issuance of permits for wireless communication facilities. Mr. Clark?
Thank you, mayors and members of the City Council. As we discussed in our workshop before this meeting, there have been a lot of changes in the regulatory and legal environment as it relates to telecommunications facilities. And the council's determined that there's a need for us to revise our telecommunications ordinance. However, it'll take some period of time to do that, and so the council adopted a 45-day moratorium, which was the maximum initial period that you were permitted to. That period is about to run out, and we're recommending it be extended for another 10.5 months, which is the next period which is permitted. We're expecting that new federal regulations will be completed sometime this fall, and we'll be working towards developing and finalizing an ordinance for your consideration before this 10.5 month period is over.
Are there any questions for staff from council members?
Well, I do have a question, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Kramer for coming and doing his presentation. I think is very valuable. And learning more about the significant change that the FCC is looking at, it has to deal with more of the cutting the 90 days to 45 days in the significant and defining significant change. Is that correct? So would this moratorium also affect applications coming in that are looking to modify cell towers that have already been granted in the city, or?
No. So
I was going to let Mr. Kramer.
Okay, yeah, I think we can let Mr. Kramer respond to that.
Good evening, Jonathan Kramer. I'm your special counsel. There's a provision that respects federal law so that if a project is compliant with Section 6409, that is the 149 words, that it can be processed. So we're not trying to hold those projects up, but that's a limited category of sites.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, council members, the staff? Did you have another question? No. Okay. I have a couple of speaker cards. Marisol Espinoza. I think I mutilated that, but.
That was perfect, actually. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, and city staff. I wanted to talk, I'm actually with Southern California Gas Company, and I wanted to talk today about the Advanced Meter Program, which will transmit usage to data collector units called DCUs. Our DCU network needs to be in place prior to meter installations. We've already installed 2,300 DCUs and have permits in 125 counties and cities. These benefit both customers and the environment, means fewer trucks on the road, reduced carbon emissions, no meter readers in yards. Usage information will be available the next day to help our customers manage energy use. And I do have fact sheets on our advanced meter program. Our system is different from telecom because it's a simple one-way communication, unlike traditional telecom. It's a private network utilized exclusively to collect customer gas usage information. Southern California Gas Company has a franchise agreement with the city of Ojai, which allows us to work on our infrastructure. It's an appurtenance to our natural gas system. SoCal Gas is exempt from this moratorium because of franchise and CPUC jurisdiction. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that the CPUC has jurisdiction. Just wanted to highlight that. We are currently working with the city and first introduced our project in 2012. We did re-engage last month. Originally, we needed 3 DCUs, and we were able to move 2 of them outside of the city, outside of residential neighborhoods, and now we only need 1 DCU in the city of Ojai, in a commercial area. Southern California Gas Company will secure the applicable permits, including encroachment and traffic control, similar to what we do for our pipeline work. Our timing is that we need to install 1 DCU this year so that we are fully operational in 2015. The advanced meters are now moving into the area, installing in Ventura County. And they are currently being installed here as old meters are being replaced. So in closing, As stated earlier, SoCalGas's position is we are exempt from this ordinance due to our franchise and project approval by the CPUC. Therefore, we urge the city to exclude us from this ordinance. We also ask that you please work with us going forward to install our DCU in a timely fashion. We hope to continue to collaborate with the city on this DCU installation while this telecom ordinance is being developed. And I do actually also have some information on our radio frequency emissions that are some comparisons that I wanted to share. So this particular network, the emissions are very, very low, lower than a baby monitor. So I just wanted to pass these out. I'm not sure if...
Give them to our city clerk and she'll distribute them later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, could I ask that Mr. Kramer also address that comment?
Yes, please. And the question that came up for me is, if they're exempt, then why would we need to exclude them in the ordinance?
Madam Mayor, council members, we've had discussions about the applicability of the moratorium to the gas company's use. Couple of factual corrections. First off, it is a two-way network. There's actually a communication circuit that goes from the DCUs down to the meters to synchronize them for the purposes of sending random data packets. Secondly, the network is not entirely a private network. It actually utilizes a commercial wireless carrier to backhaul its communications from the sites back to the gas company's meter. So those are some factual corrections. In terms of its applicability, the city attorney and I have talked about this, and it's our belief that, number one, it falls within the ordinance. Number two is, as a practical matter, we're not, through this moratorium, denying the gas company its ability to do anything. It currently reads meters. Even the new meters that they're installing have meter faces on them for that purpose. And therefore, your action in extending the moratorium now would not impede their ability to do the work that they've been doing for many decades, which is reading meters and reporting it and billing their customers. So for those reasons, we believe that there is not a specific reason to exempt them from this, and frankly, hopefully, the moratorium will be over as quickly as possible and they'll be able to proceed forward.
Madam Mayor, if I could add to that, the policy we've set out with the moratorium doesn't prevent people from filing applications. And be my recommendation to continue, as we have to work with the gas company on the location and the rollout in terms so we understand their schedule. It's very possible that we can address the aesthetic questions about their facilities in the public right-of-way before the end of the year, and they can still meet that schedule. We feel pretty strongly at this point we have the right to regulate it. We're not prohibiting them to operate their system. We are addressing legitimate public safety and aesthetic issues in the public right-of-way, dealing with facilities and right-of-way. Cities went through this with AT&T when they rolled out their UVerse system, when they were adding new and different kinds of street furniture that was larger and different from traditional utilities. Same issue here. We know that the gas company has worked with and complied with additional requirements of other local governments, Southern California, with permits for these types of facilities in the right-of-way. So I think our recommendations can both include them in don't make any change to the ordinance, but also direct staff to work with them and to keep the dialogue going and do everything rational that we can to keep them on what they said their schedule is.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Councilmember Clapp, did you have a comment question?
Yes, I have a real quick question. I don't know what a DC unit looks like.
I have pictures that I can provide to you. Essentially, it's a small box. Oh, I believe the gas company has actually provided that. So for a word description for the public, it's a small box that is affixed to the top of a pole. In some cases, they use a solar cell to provide power. In some cases, they don't. It has typically 3 antennas, 2 antennas that are used to communicate with and receive from the gas meters, and then a 3rd antenna that's mounted to the box to communicate back through the commercial wireless network to the gas company computer. I have some additional pictures which I'll provide through the city manager for you of sites that are already installed in various parts of Southern California.
Real quickly, it says 24 feet high. Is that the average height of a street light pole?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and I have a second speaker card on this item. Dan Rivetto.
Madam Mayor, council members, good evening. My name is Dan Rivetto. I'm the Director of External Affairs for AT&T. We've been providing service here in Ojai for many years, and we look forward to continuing to provide the highest quality service to your residents and our customers for many years to come. We welcome the opportunity to work with you and to provide input on the revisions to the city's telecommunications facility ordinance. We urge you to expedite this review and not impose an extended moratorium. We are very optimistic that this process can be completed quickly and effectively if we work together. Ojai residents expect quality, reliable wireless voice and data service to conduct their day-to-day business as well as communicate with their friends and family. As a provider, we need to build and upgrade the network and infrastructure to keep pace with the demand of your constituents. Ojai has the opportunity to work with the industry to strengthen and enhance its wireless networks and ensure that residents have a better wireless experience. Again, we welcome the opportunity to work with you to develop an ordinance that is practical and effective and meets the needs of the community in an expeditious and timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the speaker cards I have on this item. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to comment on this item? I see none. I'll bring it back to council. Questions, comments? I have no comment. Mr. Kramer gave an excellent presentation at special meeting prior to our regular meeting, and we have talked with him in person and over the phone probably 3 different times. So he's done quite a job in educating us, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Comments,
Madam
questions?
Mayor, as far as a comment before we vote, I think it's really important that we enact this moratorium. I think just from Mr. Kramer's presentation, the law is in flux, and I think it's very important that we take this matter very seriously and carefully when we're drafting the new ordinance. So I, for one, am very much in favor of the approval of the moratorium.
And I'd like to back up a moment. As usual, I made an error. This was a public hearing. We did receive public comment, but we did not formally open the public hearing, nor did we formally close the public hearing.
So you can do so.
So the public hearing is closed. Thank you for your comments.
I have nothing further, Madam Mayor.
I'm ready to make a motion.
All right.
Madam Mayor, if I can, just before you just remind everybody, this is an urgency ordinance, requires 4 votes to pass.
Okay, I'm ready to make a motion that the urgency ordinance extending a moratorium on the issuance of permits for wireless communication facilities until April 7, 2015, and approve the CEQA finding of exemption.
Second.
Roll call.
Black?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. The next item is a discussion item. Ventura. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Mr. Kramer.
Ventura County Fire Protection District Ordinance Number 28, Appendix L, pertaining to building standards for application within the jurisdictional boundaries of the city of Ojai. Mr. Clark?
Ms. Wald will be making this presentation.
Thank you. Good evening. As you know, the city of Ojai is part of the Ventura County Fire Protection District, and as such, the district has primary jurisdiction to adopt and enforce fire codes and regulations within the city of Ojai. They are allowed to do this under Health and Safety Code Section 1386-9.7, which allows the district to impose more stringent fire and panic safety building standards, which include sprinkler regulations. In this case, the more stringent regulations proposed by the district are found in Appendix L to Ordinance 28. These regulations must be ratified by the Ojai City Council before going into effect in Ojai. The Ventura County Fire Protection District is requesting the city ratify by resolution Ventura County Fire Protection District Ordinance Number 28, Appendix L. Back in December of 2013, this ordinance was originally scheduled to go before the City Council for ratification. It was decided at that meeting that insufficient information had been provided to the council, and staff was directed to come back with a red line version showing the changes from the previous ordinance and that Appendix L. And since that time, there have been a number of meetings, informative information given to the council and both the Building Appeals Board. The fire marshal has written memorandums and has been available to both the council and the board for workshop sessions and to answer additional questions. And with all that information provided, this item eventually went in April this year to the Building Appeals Board, which considered Appendix L. The board took testimony and discussed the item and made a recommendation to City Council to deny Ventura County Fire Protection District Ordinance Number 28, Appendix L. So after reviewing the continued concerns of the Building Appeals Board, that Appendix L as proposed did not meet the needs of the City of Ojai, and the recommendation the City Council deny Appendix L. Staff recommends that City Council direct staff to work with the fire district to modify Appendix L. These modifications would address specific concerns regarding fire sprinkler requirements based on hardship, size of building addition in relationship to original structure, existing construction, and any other criteria the city would see fit that needs to be where Appendix L, needs to modify Appendix L where it's deemed to be too stringent. Staff also points out that there are two other options that City Council can choose to explore, and one would be the option to just, in this case, would be the option to ratify Appendix L as proposed. Staff has provided the information in your packet so that you could do that tonight. And the third one, or the second option, would be to amend the city's building codes in lieu of modifying Appendix L. Once again, it's staff's recommendation that you direct staff to work with the fire district to modify Ordinance 28, Appendix L. And with that, I just point out that, you know, in response to the fiscal impact or staffing, staff's time would be expended on doing this modification of L, that's primarily where the additional cost would just be in staff time. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
Any questions, comments from council to staff?
Madam Mayor, I do have a question for Ms. Wool. So staff is asking to modify Appendix L. In the process of deciding what you want to recommend to the council, do you feel confident that you could have the ability to address the appeals board's concern over Appendix L in because they denied it? That's correct, right?
Yes, that's correct. Do I think that that the specific direction was given to staff via the board? I think that staff has a fairly good understanding of exactly where they were going and the issues. Would we know the board as a collective whole probably not as specific as we should. There were individual concerns expressed by individual members of the board, but they didn't as a whole take an action to have a specific aggregated list of concerns. Board member Wyrick attempted to get that passed in the motion, but it did not pass. But I do think that staff has enough expertise in this between myself and the building official and enough information has gone over with this that we, with just the workshops and the questions and the concerns, that we could work on that and come up with a modification that I believe could be ratified.
Madam Mayor, just from a procedural standpoint, currently Appendix L is not being enforced within the city of Ojai, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what staff is asking us to do, to instruct you to work with the fire district to come up with alternatives. After you did that, that would not come back directly to us. It would go back before the Building Appeals Board. Is that correct?
I don't think you'd necessarily have to go back to the Building Appeals Board. They've had their input. So my thought is we could bring it back to you directly.
What if we wanted it to go back before the Building Appeals Board?
Certainly, that's your call.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
You know, originally this was supposed to really affect new buildings and our second dwelling unit ordinance, not existing structures. We have spent so much time and workshops on this. If in fact this is mostly about helping people to more or less come in with their illegal unit, non-permitted units, excuse me, and basically get them permitted, I don't see why we should be spending any more staff time on this. The main cost for people who want to bring in a second dwelling and make it permitted is going to be the Ojai Valley Sanitary District, and of course the raise in taxes. Am I wrong that this isn't this mainly about second dwelling units on new structures?
I think that Mr. Wyrick is going to speak to what their concerns were, but my understanding is that it's very unlikely that a second dwelling unit would be affected by this.
Okay.
It would either be affected by the state code,
Mm-hmm.
which is not this, or if it's an addition of more than 1,000 square feet that constitutes more than 50% of the building, which is a very unlikely and very rare situation, it could affect it. But for any second unit that we're aware of, especially those that are detached, this would not impact it.
Okay.
I do think there was one other sort of general category of concern that the Building Appeals Board expressed, and that is that the cost of compliance with Appendix L would be excessive compared to the cost of their project. And I don't think that's, that we've found a way to address that yet.
And the project would be just a single dwelling unit or a commercial unit? What project are we talking about?
I think it would more likely be a commercial project.
A commercial project.
Where a second meter is required and the costs associated with that.
Okay, so as far as the individual homeowner or somebody who's looking to bring a second dwelling unit into compliance, it would really not be affecting them. It's commercial.
I think I would defer to Mr. Wyrick to summarize the
Okay.
feelings of the
Thank you.
Building Appeals Board.
All right.
And I do have a speaker card from Mr. Wyrick, but before I ask him to come in and speak, I have one more question. Is there any other questions from the council? And I'm not sure who's going to answer this. Appendix L, in its present form, has been adopted by the other cities in Ventura County, is that correct? And so if the city of Ojai chooses to change, modify, etc., it's no longer Appendix L, correct?
I think the fire district should answer that.
Okay.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor and
Good evening.
council members. For the record, my name is Masood Ragi. I'm the fire marshal with the Fire Protection District. The answer to your question is that, yes, all these other cities have adopted through resolution Appendix L. And once that is changed to make it less restrictive, is no longer going to be Appendix L. At that point, the city staff will come up with a document that is going to be in the city municipal code that will be enforced by the city at that point. And they will determine when the sprinklers are needed, when it's not needed. That's something that we have discussed before, we urge not to do. And as a fire protection district, we believe it's not, we don't want to reduce the level of safety that we have provided throughout the city, throughout the county. And reducing the level of safety through making it less restrictive is not something we like to do. And I want to just kind of bring up another point is that when we wrote Appendix L, we did extensive study. We have done national statistics we have looked at. We have gone through extensive public hearing. We have had that, got input from stakeholders. So when we did this, overall, we came up with the 50%, 25%. Those numbers came about in a way of allowing additions to happen on a regular basis, but when it gets very extensive, that's when the sprinklers are required. We did not go for the type of ordinance that would require any addition to be a sprinkler because we didn't think it would impact the community too much. So when the cost, the issue of the cost comes up, I have provided information about how many of the projects in Ojai have been affected for the past 5 years, and there have been less than a handful. We are to provide the consistency throughout the county and not to reduce the level of safety that we believe is necessary. We urge you to accept Appendix L as proposed.
Thank you for that explanation, and I cut you a little short, and that's because
okay.
I'm really clinging to my train of thought here.
You're good.
And I'm going to continue with it.
Sure.
Another, as far as Appendix L is concerned, if the city adopted Appendix L, we could not then create less restrictive city ordinances, correct?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I think the answer is that's correct. We could not do it. That would be because Appendix L is enforced by the fire district. So they'd have the authority to require the sprinklers and process those permits. So we couldn't make that more liberal.
And see, I'm going to cut you short too, because I'm still thinking here. All right, the next, for me, so if the city denied or simply didn't ratify Appendix L and created its own restrictions, regulations, those restrictions, regulations would then be, have to be enforced by city personnel as opposed to the fire district, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, we have completed my train of thought. Thank you. Any other questions, comments from?
Yeah.
Okay. I have one speaker card, William Wyrick.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I wanted to address you because the staff recommendation is slightly different from, in fact, what the Building Appeals Board has recommended. And you can see this by looking at the minutes, the draft minutes. But I wanted to summarize very quickly. Number one, it was a unanimous vote of the board to say that, recommend that the Appendix L not be ratified. Again, state code allows each individual city to decide not to ratify or to modify. The board did not feel that it met a reasonable benefit cost analysis in terms of overall public benefit, and whereas sometimes people get upset when you talk about the idea of benefit cost analysis of policy changes. In fact, what that simply means is you look at the reasonable trade-offs. And the truth is that the state fire marshal does not decide that existing buildings required the kind of triggering that the Ventura County Fire District wants on existing construction when additions are made, especially because of the heavy double, triple, or more cost of retrofitting versus new construction. and we feel the city of Ojai should stay with that. It, to some extent, takes away local discretion, does not meet the special conditions, and history suggests, and the Ventura County Fire Department concurs, the numbers involved are very small in terms of one way or another on Appendix L. We also decided, may I indulge for another minute than my time on this? Is that okay? The decline to attempt modifications of Appendix L was also part of our recommendation. The chair, myself, attempted to suggest to the fellow board members several modifications, all failed for lack of second. Two other board members are here. It's important to understand that we in fact feel that certain things should be strengthened, not associated with the fire sprinkling on existing construction, but other building hardening issues that I will get to in a second, that there are certain things that we should have here in Ojai that are stronger than what Ventura County Fire District wants. But any Ojai-specific strengthening of buildings, because of our unique urban wildland interface that we do not share with any other city in Ventura County, will not be enforced by the Ventura County Fire District. If we want to have something stronger than the Ventura County Fire District ordinance, we have to enforce it. And also we feel like those things should be part of the building code and not associated with ordinances like 27, 28, et cetera, that simply get repealed every year. We want something in our code that's steady. But our other strong recommendation that staff did not include in their recommendation is we feel that Ojai should be a fire-wise community. Fire-wise community standard is a NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, focus on more overall building hardening and extending defensible space beyond what's recommended by the Ventura County Fire District Ready, Set, Go program, which of course has to apply to the entire county, not to the special conditions of Ojai. No other city is surrounded by a wildland interface the way that the city of Ojai is. The fire chief actually spoke favorably about our idea that the council endorsed the idea of becoming a fire-wise community. The State Fire Safety Council is currently looking for demonstration communities for kicking in resources for models of fire-wise community programs statewide. We have a local fire safety council that favorably received the idea. And again, if we wish to become a fire-wise community, which we think would have a much higher benefit-cost ratio, a much stronger relationship to true fire safety in the city of Ojai, my goodness, look at today. Won't we all scared all day what might happen? We need to do that by city ordinance. So we are not running away from the issue of fire safety. We just think it needs to be targeted to the city of Ojai, and we think that fire-wise community is a better path to follow than doing more than the state fire marshal felt is necessary with respect to fire sprinkling retrofits to existing construction. Thank you. And of course, we have two other board members if they wish to add anything.
Council have questions for Mr. Wyrick? Comments? Okay. Thank you, Bill. Would you like to speak? All right.
Thank you. Again, Masood Ragu, Fire Marshal with Fire Protection District. I would like to, first of all, thank the Appeals Board for taking a very difficult task and looking at the issue and trying to come up with a recommendation. Obviously, this is not very easy. I've been before your council a few times. We have had a workshop. I've been with the Appeals Board a few times. So I understand it's a very difficult situation. But I want to just point out a couple of things that was just brought up by Mr. Wyrick. And one of them was that the Fire Protection District completely agrees having a community that it is fire-wise. We completely agree and we completely support that. But the first step is not to make what it is less restrictive and have it less restrictive as far as the life safety and fire protection goes. When you look at the fire protection for the community, you have to look at it from many different aspects. It's a system that works together. The fire sprinklers provide protection for interior fires. If you have a kitchen fire, you can harden your structure as much as you want. You have a kitchen fire, you're going to burn that building down. You're going to kill people. That is the fact. Now, when we talk about having a fire-wise community, hardening structure, you're talking about hardening structure from wildfire. You can have brush clearance as much as you want. If you have an interior fire, that brush clearance is not going to do you any good. So we are looking at all aspects of it. We can't say, well, let's reduce the fire protection for interior and let's worry about the outside. We're not talking about that. We say, let's do both. Why do we have to make one less restrictive and then focus on outside of the building? It's both. That's what the Firewise community is, looking at all aspects of it and not just one individual. The other comment I want to make is that Mr. Wyrick mentioned about the state requirement versus local requirement. By law, that is given to the local jurisdictions to make state requirements more restrictive locally, because state recognizes local jurisdictions are dealing with a different set of topography, climate. So therefore, that allows, through the health and safety code, that is given to the local jurisdiction to make those restrictions as they fit necessary for their communities. So that is the reason we're having that ability to make it more restrictive. It's not that the state doesn't believe in more restriction. The state does believe in that, except is giving that authority to local jurisdiction to make that happen, because you have a community next to the beach is very different than a community that it is further away within a wildland. So the state doesn't want to make a blanket requirement for all jurisdictions, is giving that latitude to local jurisdiction to make it more restrictive for what they believe fits their community. And that's why we are doing this. So it's not, we can't look at it and say, well, if the state believed it was more if it was more beneficial to be more restrictive, they would have done it on their own. That is really not the case. The state does believe, but that belief is passed on to the local jurisdictions. And that's the other point I want to make. The other one, I know that the cost issue came up through many of the meetings, especially the last one with the Board of Appeals. I was on vacation, I wasn't there, but I did watch the video, and the cost was an issue that was brought up over and over again. What I'm very concerned is that some of those cost issues that was brought up, the facts were not correct. Mr. Daddy referred to meter size, minimum meter size that is required by the water company, and and he referred to the staff report that I provided you in the appendix. Nowhere in there says anything about meter size. It talks about a water pipe size. That is a minimum 2-inch, and that is talking about commercial, not residential occupancies. So I am concerned when the information is not correct and the decision sometimes is made based on that information. There are many more other things that I could point out to. Mr. Daddy referred to Class A, and he was very concerned about changing the roof construction, and he referred to Appendix L about a section that it refers to Class A requirement for standalone restrooms. And he pointed out that it is required by the Fire Protection District, and that is not correct. Fire Protection District does not require Class A roof on a standalone building. If you read the ordinance, it says if you do it, then you don't have to have a sprinkler. It doesn't say you have to do it. It doesn't say you have to have a Class A. He was very concerned. I'm very concerned when, unfortunately, I wasn't there that evening to address some of that issue, but I do want to be on record saying that. I'm very concerned when some of the information that is not correct, that is not factual, is being used to come up with a certain decision. I respect the board looking at it, and I provided as much information as I could to the board. I've had private conversation with Mr. Wyrick. I provided as much information as I can, and I continue to do so. But I truly believe that we cannot reduce the level of property and life safety in order to look at it as we want to be a Firewise community. Firewise community requires both. Let's not throw one out and focus on one. Let's do this one and focus on adding more to it through the ordinance. That's the comment I have. Any questions?
Madam Mayor?
Okay.
Thank you for your comments, but I do have a question. How, you just said that the state fire marshal allows you to be more restrictive because communities are different. Can you explain to me, when it comes to an interior fire, how a beach community how a community like Ojai or a community like Mojave are any different?
It comes to response time. Different jurisdictions have different equipment to respond. They have different way of responding the engine. They have communities, the distance from the structures. So it allows the communities to make that determination. How much time does it take to respond? One of the comments I heard from the board through the video when I was watching, that let's worry about the ones that are further away in the wildland area. Those need sprinklers, but the ones that are 3 minutes away or 6 minutes away from the fire station, they don't. First time I came before you in January, I showed you a video, and that video showed in 3 minutes the fire destroyed that room. So when we're talking about a fire, it moves very quickly. So you have to get response there quickly. Another point I want to make, I'm sorry, I don't want to digress from what you brought up, but it just came in my head. I want to make sure I address it. We talked about drought, and we're talking about this. We are going to be in drought. We continue to come in and out of droughts. If you have a building that it is protected with fire sprinklers, very, very minimal amount of water is used to protect that building. When you're talking about a non-sprinkler building, you're talking about thousands of gallons of water is being used to extinguish a fire. It is a responsible thing to do, in my mind, to have communities where they do have sprinklers and continue to provide sprinklers, where the protection is done responsibly. You're not relying on the engines to come because they may be further away by the time they come. If you have a station close by that is on a call, the next station that is further away has to respond. So your response time is going to change a little bit. So you have to consider that. So that's why I think it's important to look at those issues and say it's not just we're talking about one issue. There are multiple issues that is related with this appendix. Again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to digress.
Well, I have a follow-up question. I'm still not understanding your rationale. Okay. What is the difference between a beach community, Ojai, and Mojave, if you're saying that somebody has to respond within 3 minutes in order to affect not needing the sprinklers? I don't understand that concept. If the state fire marshal doesn't believe that it's important enough to make a state regulation that's going to take into consideration interior fires in communities, I don't see the difference between a kitchen fire at the beach, a kitchen fire in Ojai, or a kitchen fire in Palm Springs. To me, it's all the same. So what purpose does the state fire marshal have by allowing you to be more restrictive in Ventura County than in San Bernardino County?
If you have communities that you have a lot of wildland, let's say, that you will come across having wildland response, that a lot of your resources are dedicated for wildland fires, that those resources are drawn out, you have the ability, the state gives you the ability to come back and say, well, I want my buildings to be well protected, so those resources that are left behind, which are as skeleton resources basically, are able to respond to a small size fire, not to a big size fire that draws more resources. So when you're talking about a community perhaps that it is not in a wildland, it will benefit a little bit. But if you are in a community that is much more, or if you have a jurisdiction that you're dealing with a lot of wildland, which we are in Ventura County, that we have a lot of wildland fires, that draws down our resources. When it draws down our resources, we need the best protection we can, so those are skeleton resources that we can respond, they can respond accordingly.
Okay, well then why won't this fire district take into consideration exterior fire protection if our resources are going to be drawn away from our community? I'm far more concerned about an external fire affecting me than I am my kitchen catching on fire. And if I was that concerned about my kitchen catching on fire, I'd voluntarily put sprinklers in my house. But if you're going to draw down if the rationale to have sprinklers inside is because we may have a drawn down response team, well, what about us if we have a drawn down staff in our valley and a wildfire starts? To me, I'm much more concerned about that.
Absolutely, and I'll address that. When you say you are more concerned with the outside of wildland fire, and you say what does the fire protection district is doing, we're doing a lot. And we have done a lot over the years. If you look at our fire hazard reduction, which is a 100-foot clearance around the structures, has provided us, this county, to be well protected. If you look at the counties to the south of us, the jurisdiction to the south, the jurisdiction to the north, you will see that the Ventura County has not lost too many structures in wildland fires over the years. So we have done that, and we have done it through our ordinance. We have done it through Ordinance 28 and previous ordinances. So we are very concerned, and we have done tremendous amount of work in that. So it is not that we are not, and the evidence actually shows that we have been very, very successful. Right now, there are sections in the building code that addresses the hardening of the structures in the wildland-urban interface areas. And those are done by the state, and we accepted those, and we do that. So we have addressed that. We are not silent to that issue. We believe that is a very important issue in our community, especially Ojai, which is surrounded. And those things that we have put in our ordinance has shown over the years been extremely successful. I am very concerned, though, when the discussion comes of extending that defensible space to 200 foot or 300 foot. I'm extremely concerned because there are a lot of environmental impact that comes with it. And for issue, I can tell you right away that 100-foot clearance they have been done a study on it, so there is some evidence and science behind it. 200 foot has never been proven to be that much more effective. You can have 300-foot clearance, you can have embers flying over a mile and still be an issue. And the other thing is that when you look at clearings around the structures over 100 foot, now you're encroaching into the neighbors and over the neighbors. There's a huge environmental issues. You're talking about CEQA issue, environmental issues, neighbor issue. There's a lot of things, and it's not necessary. We have been very successful with 100 foot, hardening our structures, protecting the outside, protecting the inside. We have done a very, very good job. So that's why I 100% agree with you. We have worked on that, and the evidence has actually shown. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Thank you. I got a much bigger, well, if I was to sum it up, I'd say, let's say we had a wildland fire today, and there would be a ton of Ventura County resources fighting that on our hillsides. If at the same time a structure goes up in flames, and they don't have fire sprinklers, let's say a commercial structure, then some of the resources that are fighting the wildland fire may have an increased time to get to the house, let's say the business in the city, to take out that fire?
No, some of the other engines, and actually Chief Plott can explain that. He's more into operation, can explain that better than I can. But from what I understand, some of the other stations that are further away, they have to come in and respond. So your response time is going to change.
So the response time could be longer, because everybody who's local is out fighting the hillside fire. Is that correct?
We send resources to, obviously, the fire that's happening, and then at the same time, we also bring in other resources to backfill those stations to keep what we consider a first alarm within the jurisdiction. But those resources have to come from outside of Ojai to backfill. And so, yes, you are correct. I mean, we've had fires where all the valley resources are committed, and I personally have had a fire at the east end of Ojai, and I was the first engine on scene from Station 22 in Miners Oaks. And the next engine that was on scene came from the Summit Station, and the Ojai engine was busy, and so was the engine at Station 23. So, I mean, it does happen from time to time, but you are correct in your analysis there.
That makes the most practical sense to me, that you wouldn't be, if our firefighters are out fighting a big brush fire, you want to eliminate as best as possible building fires in the city.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Wyrick, you wanted to, yes. And while you're walking up there slowly, there is a problem. Otherwise, we would not still be debating this. What I would like to narrow it down to is what is that problem? Is it the sprinkler portion? Is it greater than that? Is it trying to solve all fire standards? Appendix L, what specifically in Appendix L is causing this impasse?
And,
But answer whenever you...
Before Mr. Wyrick answers that, can I ask staff a question? This, depending on which way we go tonight, but if we approve Appendix L, that means we're approving Appendix L and that's it. If we deny Appendix L, then we're denying the entire Appendix L. We can't approve a portion of Appendix L and deny other parts of or ratify portions of it and not ratify other portions of it, can we?
The statute says that we can approve, deny, or modify.
Okay.
So we would, that's the discussion, we would not be approving Appendix L, we'd be promulgating something different.
All right. Then to ask Mr. Wyrick, what portions of Appendix L did the board feel were not necessarily needed to be modified, and what parts of it did they believe should be modified?
There was not unanimity within the board on that question. I can say as one member of the board that I suggested some of the parts of Appendix L that took away discretion with respect to the local jurisdiction in terms of using fire sprinklers to mitigate other building code issues, interpretation of what a firewall is, et cetera. I could go through those in detail, but I don't want to bore that. Those actually concern me than the actual fire sprinkler triggering on existing construction. I think other board members felt that the major issue was the triggering on the existing construction, which is far more expensive than existing construction. And to be specific, some of the initial figures on cost that were provided by the Ventura County Fire District for retrofitting existing construction just focused on the installation of the fire sprinklers, not the cost of connecting to the water system, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of back and forth about the true cost of that. So I'm sorry, I can't give you a specific question, a specific answer to the question on that. I think that there were a number of concerns. I provided some ideas on modification that would leave the triggering in on existing construction, but still leave in some of the flexibility. But I couldn't get other board members to go with me on that. All right, is that a sufficient answer to your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Well,
Smith.
thank you. You know, when I'm looking at the comments of the Building Appeals meeting concerning their concerns about the Appendix L, they're all over the place. I mean, one member here says, in the interest of keeping costs down for second unit compliance programs, she would like to modify Appendix L. And I think that's why I said what I did. But I've been told, no, it's not a hindrance for second unit compliance. Well, is it yes or no? That's what I like. Yes or no? Does it apply
Respond in terms of what the Ventura County Fire District said at one point.
Yes.
The Ventura County Fire District at one point in their staff report said that, quote unquote, a non-conforming permit may have to treat a existing construction as new construction because it wasn't built with a permit. And that would mean that the current fire sprinkler requirements on new construction would apply. Now, they since kind of changed that, all right, but that was what triggered that concern because of the word may, and that's similar to what the dust-up in Ventura County was about on the application of the energy standards. The staff said, well, the existing energy standards would have to apply to old construction. That turned out not to be true. But again, it has the issue. That was where the source of that issue was a response of the Ventura County Fire District to that question.
But in fact, our fire district officers say that is not true.
Well, they were the ones that said maybe initially.
Okay. Could you clarify it? This is a big issue.
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked. The reason in the staff report I said maybe is because it has to do with the building official determining whether they want to apply the current code or the time when it was built. when the structure was built.
Uh-huh.
So it's really not up to us. If
Okay.
the building official comes and says, this building has to comply with today's code, then I'm obligated to apply Appendix L as it is today.
Mhm.
If the building official comes and says, no, we want to go ahead and apply whatever, when it was built, then whatever ordinance was applicable at the time will be applied. So in that respect, when you look at it, because our ordinance 2007 changed to a current format that you see it. Prior to that was any structure over 5,000 square feet were required to be a sprinkler. At that point, if you look at it, I'm pretty sure you're not going to find a second dwelling that is going to be 5,000 square
No.
foot.
Mhm.
So I couldn't speak for the building official in my staff report. That's why I wrote down may, because it depends on their decision. That's
Their decision. Well, we're talking about a second unit
correct.
compliance, so I'm assuming that the first building on that lot had a permit. So it may be the building official says that the second unit has to come up to all the standards that exist, while in fact our second unit, does not say that at all. We're looking for safety issues. Okay, so I can see where you said may.
That's correct.
But you, in your opinion, there's exceedingly few buildings that would require that.
From what I heard from Mr. Clark, that's the case. He
Okay.
earlier alluded to that, yes.
And it has nothing to do with, Mr. Daddy talked about roofing, and this has nothing to do with
No,
roofing,
this
right?
is completely different issues, and it gets kind of mixed up from time to time, and I urge not to mix those two.
Well, I wasn't, and then I
agree with that. I think that, I'm not sure if the minutes are correct on that. He was bringing up issues of hardening buildings by city ordinance beyond what the Ventura County Fire District.
All right, all right.
Which will not be enforced by the Ventura County.
Another member said that the requirements in Appendix L are too expensive.
That's the opinion of some, yes, ma'am.
Okay, but I'm just looking for the reasons why the Building Appeals Board unanimously voted no, and they're all over the place, and some of them are questionable whether they really would fit.
There were different people have different reasons. for
The
their vote.
cost of perfect safety is infinity, yes, it is. I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Thank you.
So it's extremely, this issue is extremely confusing, and I think the Building Appeals Board's answers to it were not really very enlightening. They came up with the no, but from what I'm hearing, a lot of that was based on things that were erroneous to Appendix L. All right, that's all I have to say. I'm not sure where to go with it from
If
here.
I could make a further couple comments, but Mr. Blatz, were you wanting to start?
Just to follow up a little bit on Councilwoman Smith, the Appendix L, if we put it as simply put as possible, it pertains to new construction or remodels of commercial properties, correct?
And triggering retrofits to existing construction by those additions, correct?
For commercial. For
Commercial and residential.
No, hold on. I'm taking
Okay.
it one step at a time.
I'm sorry.
Commercial units.
Yes.
Correct? All right. It takes into consideration residential remodels that are 1,000 square feet or more, and also 50% or more of the existing structure. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the interpretation is that if it's a second dwelling unit that was constructed without a permit, regardless of its size, if the building official said it had to be brought up to today's standards, it would have to have sprinklers in it. Is that correct?
Yes, but that has nothing to do with Appendix L. That is a state requirement.
Okay, so that doesn't have anything to do with
Nothing to do
Appendix
with
L.
it. Appendix L, if I may summarize it, the bulk of it or the main part of it is sprinklering the residential sprinklers that are addition of 1,000 square foot and more than 50% of existing. Commercial buildings, those that are not required by the state, and addition to commercial buildings that are more than 25% of the existing. Now, new residentials, even though it says it's in Appendix L, the state already requires it, so it's a moot point.
Okay, but it's not just the 1,000 square foot and 50% required addition that triggers sprinkler system within that new construction. It also, and by the way, it also includes new construction, residential new construction.
You're talking about extending the sprinklers to new and existing, or?
I'm talking about just brand-new construction.
Oh, brand new construction?
Yes.
Brand new construction, residential or commercial?
Residential.
It requires by the state.
Okay, but we're talking about if you build this 1,000 square foot addition and it's more than 50%, you not only have to sprinkle the addition, but you have to retrofit those sprinklers into the existing structure.
That's correct.
And the inventory of houses in Ojai and the age of the inventory of Ojai, that requirement, in my opinion, is cost prohibitive. If you just said, we'll sprinkle the addition, you'd have me. But where you say you have to extend that into some houses that are 50, 60, 70 years old, and which is going to be extremely expensive to the owner, then they're going to be prohibited from doing the addition. And that's the problem that I have this with Appendix L.
Absolutely. But let me point out.
Councilmember Clapp?
Yeah, real quickly. We keep talking about cost, and one thing that's really frustrating me is I've never been given any idea of what the cost would be for any of this. So it's this, keep throwing this out there, but I don't have any numbers. That's really frustrating to me. What you mentioned is really interesting, because I have a 1926 Spanish bungalow with plaster roof. There's no crawl space, and you've made a really good point with housing stock. The age of housing stock hasn't really been discussed that much in this conversation. The housing stock in this community is very old compared to most of the other communities in Ventura County. So this is a real big question about the cost. So I need an idea about what we're talking about.
I'm going to address
that'd be great.
what it was just said. Councilmember Blatz, if the idea is to not adopt or not approve the resolution for Appendix L, because you feel or other council members feel that only the addition should be sprinklered, therefore, let's have a city code that will only require the addition to be a sprinkler, not the existing, I caution you that. And I say that because the way the sprinklers work, they operate on an incipient stages of fire. That means when the fire is very small. In residential occupancies, they're only designed to have 2 sprinkler heads in the entire home to operate. That means the water supply that is available is designed to be for 2 sprinkler heads. If you have a fire in a non-sprinkler portion of the house, by the time it reaches to the sprinkler portion, it overwhelms the sprinkler, you lose the structure. So it's one of those things that you either have to do it all or don't do it at all. Because sprinkling portion of it, I caution you, that is not possible. So if we walk away here and say, we want to have a city ordinance or city resolution that does that, we cannot, that is not be practical.
About
Now,
1,000 square feet. What about if your addition is only 800 square feet,
it does not require
1,000?
Or 50%.
Or 50%. The reason I say that is because when you talk about the cost, you really have to look at it. 50% of existing and 1,000 is a substantial addition to a structure. You're not talking about a small addition. You're talking about a major remodel, major addition. You can add all the way to 1,000 square foot or 50% of your, and not trigger sprinklers at all. So those requirements that you say is costly is when you're really, really going out and really adding. I don't know, I haven't done the survey, I don't know how many lots in Ojai allows 50% addition without, or has enough room to have that 50%. I'm not so sure. But most communities, they don't go that far. You don't go to that extent. But
Madam Mayor, if that's the case, why do you need the ordinance then? If it's not productive, intuitively, if there's no place to incorporate this, if there's no place where, if there's very few, if any, places where this ordinance is going to apply, then why have the ordinance?
Because you provide a consistency throughout the county in application, in the enforcement of it. There's a lot, then you're talking about having set up rules in Ojai and different somewhere else. The communities, we look at it as a whole, protection, we know what is required for. City of Ojai may have 5 or 3 in 5 years of that is gonna come to. Another city may have 50, 100 of them. We don't look at the numbers in that respect. You're providing a level of safety, a level of protection that it is consistent throughout the county. The enforcement of it is consistent. The application, the laws are consistent. We're not talking about different areas having different rules. That's why.
Well, it just seems to me that with the small bungalows that we have in this town, Appendix L could be triggered with a much smaller addition than 1,000 square feet. And it could cause an exorbitant amount of interior work on the original structure to sprinkle it.
But the data hasn't shown.
Okay,
I
did
promise
you
to
finish up your
quickly.
questions?
Well, I still haven't got my answer. You know, I think it's really frustrating that never in any of these staff reports have we had any numbers. I mean, for one guy, $1,000 is too much money. For another guy, 10 grand is too many numbers. Does Wendy know? Do you know what it costs?
But I just want to, she has raised her hand a couple of times, so when you finish, I'd like Wendy to come up and make whatever
Okay.
comment.
Wendy, now?
Are you finished?
Yeah, that's my.
I have a couple more comments and I'll be done.
I haven't got my answer.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Okay.
And then Wendy, you're up.
If the council would accept it, I would be happy to develop and try to put into a written form a lot of the information specific on costs and other matters to the council that the Building Appeals Board did come up with. And Councilman Clapp, we do have some numbers on cost. And the one thing I think we all can agree on, Ventura County Fire District and ourselves, is that the cost on existing construction is much higher than new. That's simply a fact, and that drives a lot of the concerns. We're talking about small numbers here, and I want to try to end on a positive. The FireWise community, the reason that we focused on that is that the National Fire Protection Association, in their FireWise community program, will work with a local community to develop the kinds of ordinances that are specific to your problems, specific to our situation, and bring the expertise of that national program to our community in conjunction with the local fire department. In specific, the National Fire Protection Association talks about defensible space management beyond the 100 feet that the Ventura County Fire Department talks about that was just discussed. So we're not talking about something that is, that we've grabbed out of thin air to say that we ought to think about more than 100 feet in management of defensible space. The National Fire Protection Association, in their FireWise community program, talks about this, as well as a lot of hardening matters for specific buildings that are not in the Ventura Code that we think should be in the city code. So I think that what you've heard is a kernel of agreement that exploring the City of Ojai becoming a FireWise community is something constructive to work on that would have a lot of meaningful impact in a very cost-effective manner on the fire safety of the entire community. So I would hope that we could focus perhaps on that positive. Thank you. And
I have to say, the ecological effect of going out to 200 feet would be horrible. I mean, there's no way all those nests, all those birds, all those plants,
Mayor Smith,
I could not imagine going 200 feet. I've seen what the 100 feet does. There's no
Councilman-
way I would go along with 200 feet.
Councilman Smith, it's not clearance, it's management. The National Fire Protection Association has extensive guidelines that involve how you thin, how you manage. It is not
And who in the
clearance.
world is going to do this? Right now, the fire protection district gets 100, or the homeowner has to do it. And when they do it, I'll tell you what they do. They just clear everything.
Well, that is not what the National Fire Protection Association and the FireWise Community Program and the local Fire Safety Council have in mind.
It may not be, but that's what people can do and can afford.
Again, that's why I think a study group that the council would endorse on looking at becoming a Firewise community would be very helpful.
Madam Mayor?
And I think we have several more comments, and I want to make a quick comment. It's getting a little warm up here. Could we check?
Board Member Hilger, I'm sure would. I'm tired of always doing all the talking. You know.
Right moment.
Do we have sprinklers?
Let's wait just a second till we adjust our. And Wendy, I'm going to go ahead and listen to the council comments, and then I'll call you up. Okay? And all right. We won't wait on Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you. Councilmember Laura?
Yes, just to get it straight, if we adopt Appendix L, it would, I hear the word consistency throughout the county. Would that inhibit the city of Ojai to add other ordinances or codes that are more stringent?
Absolutely not. You can adopt Appendix L as proposed and still have an ordinance that it is more restrictive. Absolutely. And that's exactly what I'm proposing. Because a lot of things are coming up as concerns that the city of Ojai needs to be addressed. And I completely agree. And those can be addressed through an ordinance with the city. That does not mean we need to throw Appendix L or make it less restrictive. You can adopt Appendix L as it is through resolution and have an ordinance that it is more restrictive.
I would like to comment something with regard to your question, and that is, my concern isn't that Ojai could adopt something more stringent. My concern is that the Building Appeals Board already feels that Appendix L is too stringent. Is that correct, Bill?
We feel that it's too stringent in the wrong areas.
Okay. Does that help?
That the extra stringency should be in other areas.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, and my thought process in thinking about all this and thinking about consistency and how the fire department or the fire district would like consistency, I think whether we adopt or modify or deny Appendix L, by us adding different ordinance, I guess my question would be, would that disrupt the consistency without within the county, or where would that responsibility rely on? Would that be on our staff, or that would be on the fire district, or?
I think the fire district, I don't think would contradict me, that if we adopt stringencies beyond their ordinance 28, that would be by our ordinance, and our city officials would have to enforce it.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, I just want to add to
Councilmember Clapp?
Absolutely correct. If it goes beyond, it's the staff who will develop it, city staff will develop it, city staff will enforce it. One thing I'm extremely concerned, when Mr. Wyrick said earlier and also commented just right now that he does not believe in certain aspects of the Appendix L being more restrictive. And earlier, and I don't want to go through the details of it, but earlier referred to the firewalls and all that. There is a history behind that. There is a reason for certain things that are written in Appendix L the way they are. And not knowing the history of it and saying it is too restrictive on this end and hasn't been discussed, I'm afraid it's not a complete picture. You can't just, those things about the firewall or some of the stuff that is, other than sprinklers that is there, there's a history behind it. We have had ordinance that was requiring firewalls. There were breaches in the firewalls. So we had to tighten it to alleviate some of the problems that previous ordinances caused. So we can't just say, well, this section is too restrictive. We want it to be less restrictive. You may reject it and we'll come back and realize through the conversation that we can make it less restrictive because there's a reason behind why it is the way it is. And I'm afraid It just gets too technical and too detailed to go over it now. But I'm just concerned that not decisions aren't made based on that. If the decision is made based on cost, I did provide the staff through our workshop. I provided the staff report. I did not see it as being part of a record for tonight's meeting, which I would like to submit. Part of this has some of the numbers we got from contractors. These contractors we called, we asked them how much it is. They provided them in writing for us. They provided writing for underground. They provided writing for connection. We provided costs for this from the water companies. All that cost is in here, is in one of the appendix. So I will go ahead and pass this if you don't mind. I want it to be as a record, so you do have it, if you don't mind.
Give it to our city clerk.
It's better than Google.
Was that all
Yeah,
of
that was it.
Councilmember Clapp?
And
then
I'm glad
you
to
had a
have that.
question, Carol.
I was looking at Google, and you never know what's right on the internet. I got everything from $1.35 a square foot for new construction to $2 for new construction and $2 to $3 for retrofitting. And so that'll.
I think you can compare to what we have gotten from the
Yeah.
contractors, but it is an appendix.
Excellent, thank you. I would like to.
Go ahead and pass them out.
I would like to go back to what Councilwoman Smith mentioned about clearing. She's absolutely right. Going to 200 to 300 feet is a huge, as the fire chief stated, a huge matter. It's a CEQA issue, it's an environmental issue, and you're not going to be able to monitor how people do their clearing, and she's right, clearing usually is done with a certain amount of wantonness. And there are nesting animals and birds that dwell in those low-lying brush. So I would have to agree with her completely. I would never support under any circumstances 200 to 300 foot clearance.
And here's what I have to add to that. If there was a big issue, if we were losing a lot of structures, then we could say, yes, it is an issue we need to address. We haven't. So there's no point coming and putting your resources, and you talk about a cost for sprinklers, that is a huge cost.
I have another question. How many house fires do you see versus how many homes who lose in the hillsides to wildfires? And where do they normally start?
Well, I would just say that, the Blue Ribbon Commission after the Cedar Fire looked to Ventura County as the model for fire protection and the way things should be. Ventura County Fire Protection District, that is your fire department, that's right here in Ojai, has been the leader for counties up and down the state. And I think it was mentioned by the fire marshal, is that when you look to the north and the south of us in the amount of homes that are lost to wildfire, and you compare it to Ventura County, we lose very few structures because Ventura County has been the leader. Your fire protection district, your home fire district, your home fire station here in Ojai we supported 100-foot clearance when everybody else was doing 30 feet. And we stuck by our guns, and we took some bumps and bruises, as you can imagine, when we actually went out and cleared. But the thing of it is that if we have 100-foot of clearance and a house catches on fire, guess what? The neighbor's house is less likely to catch on fire. And so Ventura County's been the model. The codes and ordinances that the Fire Prevention Bureau has the hardening of the structures, and a lot of things that have done in the building phases have made the houses in our city a lot, when we go to build a new house, a lot, they have boxed-in eaves. They have the modern building that non-combustible construction. So Ventura County Fire Protection District has led the way. We've been looked at from, fire departments from Australia. Hey, how does California do it? And it comes back, the Blue Ribbon Commission that was chaired by the then Fire Chief Bob Roper was looked at as a model for other communities. And, I don't have to tell you, but if you look at the history, both north and south of us, in structure loss, we lose very few structures.
Now, as far as domestic fires, the number one cause is kitchen fires or dryer vents?
It usually is smoking. It used to be the number one cause.
Smoking.
I was on a fire yesterday and it was smoking.
Smoking.
And kitchen
fires. And dryer vents?
Dryer vents, there's a
because I have a list and it has all different, they kind of go in different orders.
National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, has gathers statistics throughout the country. And if you go to their website, they list all the fires statistic which ones are number one.
Oh.
Smoking, kitchen fires, those are the top causes of fire. One thing to add to what Chief Plott was saying earlier as being the model, I want to point out one other thing about the ordinance. We required fire sprinklers in residence in 2007. State wasn't requiring that. In 2011, the state changed, and now they require sprinklers in residential occupancies. We have been doing it for years before the state came to that level that said, yes, we do need it. So we've been in front for many years when it comes to fire protection for homes, when it comes to wildland protection. We have done a very, very good job in this county doing that. We have been a leader for many, many years. And that's why what I present to you, I can assure you we have looked at it from every which way you can, and we provided you with all the information we have. And it has taken the state to come to that level of protection. They require 30 feet. We required 100 feet. Now they require 100 feet. We required sprinklers when they didn't. Now they require sprinklers. So we have been, just like you took the lead for other ordinances that it is specific for the city, for plastic and other issues. We were there. We took the lead, and we were the leader, and we have been looked at by many jurisdictions and other countries as to how we have done it, and they have modeled our program. So just want to let you know that we have really looked at this very deeply. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Can we please
Councilmember
offer
Clapp,
Board Member Hilger a chance?
wait a minute. You're done? Okay, are we ready to ask Wendy Hilgers to come up? Wendy?
If I can remember.
I know, we're all over the place.
Well, I just wanted to say, obviously, we've already had we've had a sprinkler ordinance in effect for quite a long time, and Ojai is extremely unique because of the topography, the geography of our area, the mountains and the brush. And the old housing stock that we have is important too. So I always wondered, what were the circumstances where we had a conflagration and all of the agencies were responding to that, and fires broke out in individual houses around the community that weren't from the embers of the forest fire, that were from interior fires, that made the fire department look at this as a very, very important issue to add these further requirements, additions to the sprinkler code. Why was that an issue? I've talked to a lot of contractors throughout the last few weeks, months, and from the very beginning when we asked what would it cost to install sprinklers in different circumstances, $2,000 was the figure we were always given. But I've heard $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and I think the reports that you have show the cost is extremely high. And just as Councilman Clapp looked at her own home, if you sit in your own house, well, look here, and you sit here and you think, what would it be to retrofit something like this? You can think the cost would be way more than $2,000. So anyway, I think the people in the community realize the importance of sprinklers, but nobody's rushing out to sprinkler their home, and it is the cost. It can be prohibitive. And I think we all have to weigh, in a perfect world, if we could protect ourselves against every possible issue, we would do that, but we can't do it. We have to weigh it for ourselves and make that decision and decide whether you want to sprinkler your own house or not. You're perfectly able to do that. There's nothing that restricts any individual from doing that, but it isn't being done. And the numbers of houses in Ojai that are old, it would just be prohibitive. Anyway, I'm sure I have more things, but that's it. Thank you.
May I comment? I've heard that before as to if people want to sprinkler their homes, leave it up to them to do it. To me, it's very similar to seatbelt law when it came out. Everybody knew that not wearing a seatbelt is not safe. It took a law to change that mindset. if you would have left it up to people and say, well, wear the seatbelt whenever you feel like it, we wouldn't have the level of compliance that we do have to here. We as a fire protection, we recognize that. We look at the building and we say the owner of the building is responsible not only to protect themselves, protect the structure, but the neighbors. Because when you have a fire if you have a burning building, the embers flying out of your building, if you have properties close by, you're putting them in danger as well. You're not just talking about yourself. So you're not talking about only the structure you live in. So you have to kind of consider that as a level of importance. Cost, I mean, the $2,000 has come up many times, and I'm not so sure where that number exactly. I wasn't the one who brought that number up, but I have provided what we have gotten from contractors. I mean, I have no financial gain from the contractors. We called them up, and they provided those numbers. So those are independent contractors that provided the numbers, and I have provided you. The cost is yes. You're absolutely right. It's like saying what handicap accessor for some commercial buildings is excessive, but it's necessary. We look at the fire protection, the same thing. It's necessary to do. So that's why some of that requirements, it is the way it is. Sorry about that. Any questions?
No, none for, did you have questions?
I do have a question, Madam Mayor, but for our staff, and then
Okay.
kind of relates with the fire marshal. In this discussion and looking at your recommendation and modification of possible sections of Appendix L, I'm trying to see what our options are and see if we were to decide to direct staff to work with the fire marshal. To me, it sounds like there's more of a consistency issue of dealing with the whole county. So how do you see it worth modifying it, or I guess this is for Ms. Wool or our city manager Clark, or
So I think we can have the discussion. In my mind, the major issues are the cost and the second unit impacts. If we can't come to some resolution, then we would have to come back with an alternate recommendation to you.
And I guess for the fire marshal, do you see any possible modifications to Appendix L that could benefit our concerns or our?
I don't. I think the concerns can be addressed through an ordinance. Appendix L, as is proposed, we believe is the best protection that we can, reasonable protection that we can provide, as proposed. We definitely support with the ordinance that it is more restrictive in other aspects for the city, hardening construction and whatever else. I can see that, but that does not mean lessening the restriction of the Appendix L.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Councilmember Clapp?
I just did a little bit of quick math, because I like to get things in perspective. If somebody's putting 1,000 square foot new construction addition onto their home, it would cost $1.50 to $2 a square foot. So that would be $2,000 for a sprinkler system and new construction. I don't know what a remodel costs anymore, but I just said $60 a square foot. Is that what it costs these days?
I believe in that appendix, it does say how much it is for existing.
Yes, and I'm going to that next.
Okay.
So that's new construction. And I'm going to say $60 a square foot if you're not putting in any, bathrooms or kitchens. That's $60,000, and it's going to cost you $2,000 to put a sprinkler system in it, to protect your $60,000 investment. And with the retrofit, it was $3 to $4 a square foot, so I used the $4 figure, always the perpetual cynic that I am. That made it $4,000 for a retrofit of an existing home. So I thought that was very interesting. So it's $4,000 to retrofit your home to protect in the city of Ojai. Your average small house costs you $354,000, $500,000. So $4,000 can protect a $500,000 investment if these figures are accurate. The other figures that are in here are as high as $450 to retrofit a square foot. And I respect a contractor's bid, there's a lot in here. You didn't just do 1 or 2 bids. You've got a lot in here. It
We
looks like
called
you've got
around
one,
and we tried to get it
two-
across the board, how much they charge, and that's what they provided us, and that's what I have provided you.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot here. You've got like 5 or 6 or more
Because I
different
wanted
contractors.
because I wanted to make sure we capture residential as well as commercial.
Right, and you do. So I'm just showing what I learned here in the last few minutes. But I will look at it again in case I have made a mistake.
Okay, is it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, come forward. And pretty soon I'm going to, yes, come forward. And in just a few minutes here, I'm going to make a statement of my own, which is pretty well going to wrap this up for the night. We've been here long enough for tonight.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm Cynthia Wyrick. I'm Dr. Wyrick's wife. I'm from Louisiana. We get more rain in a day than you get here all year. This is all really new to me. One thing, and it may be, and we don't talk about this stuff. I don't want to talk about this stuff with him at home. So anyway, it may be in these ordinances or whatnot, but just in this general conversation going on in this room tonight, talking about residential retrofitting. Most fires that I'm familiar with in Louisiana are kitchen fires. And you don't use water to put out a kitchen fire. You get a special, fire extinguisher with chemicals that put out a kitchen fire. And I don't know why I'm not hearing any of this. And you have to have them for your insurance. And if your house burns up and they find out you don't have the right number of extinguishers and the right kinds of extinguishers in your home, well, you're just, up the creek because, that's your insurance, your homeowner's insurance. So, I don't understand the way things are done here. But this is just something I'm not hearing. A little red can, that's what you need. So I'm not talking about commercial. I'm talking about a residence. Okay, so it was really bothering me. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're glad you're here with us tonight. And Bill needs to talk more at home. Dale?
No, he doesn't.
Dale Hansen. I live in the city of Ojai, and I am also on the Building Appeals Board. And I just want to say that, you hear all of this, and great comments from you, and thank you. I know that from talking to a lot of people, which of course we all did trying to figure this out, I've heard from many people, not from many, but enough that it makes me concerned, that sometimes the sprinklers don't work. And from others I've heard them say, they work when there was no fire, but I got a soggy sofa from it. Now, those may be small matters, but our Building Appeals Board looked at this thing backwards and forwards. I think some of the costs that you're reciting from that report, Betsy, are very low.
Yeah, I see that. I'm looking further. May I interject real quickly?
Sure.
Because here's one, a 2,000 square foot to 2,500 square foot home can be between 5 and 8,000. And interestingly, under here it says retro in most cases can increase cost up to 50 to 70% of bid price with exclusions for drywall removal and any repairs, patching, and painting. And a lot of homes aren't drywalled in this town, especially your old Spanish style. You have coved ceilings and plaster, lath and plaster walls, so it can be much more complicated than that. So that's why I said I would continue to look at this to get a clear understanding of what it would cost.
Yeah, thank you for that. But when we were discussing this and looking at it, and I was studying it at home, it just seemed to me that given our older building stock that we have here, and what it would take to retrofit some of those houses if they did want to add on, and some of them are small, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm not saying that all of the Resolution L is bad or not good. I'm just saying that I think we need to hold on. And I know we beat this thing to death already, but nevertheless, I don't think we're finished looking at what it is for Ojai, and I hope that we don't accept it tonight, but we consider to look at it and decide what part, if any part, would work for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. I'm going to chat a little bit here. From everything I've absorbed at this point in time, Appendix L does not work for Ojai. That is basically the recommendation of the Building Appeals Board. I don't think, well, Mr. Fletcher said maybe, but to me, we adopt Appendix L as is, or we don't. Once it's modified, it's something else. So, my feeling is that at this point in time, Appendix L does not work for Ojai. That's what I'm hearing from our Building Appeals Board. Any other questions, comments?
Madam Mayor, I just have one comment. First of all, I really want to thank like Dale said, we beat this thing to death, and the fire district has really spent a lot of time on this, and our Building Appeals Board has spent a lot of time on this, and I want to thank you for doing that. My feeling is if we ratify Appendix L in its entirety, there's a section of Appendix L that really has a dramatic impact on our community, and that's the portion having to do with remodels. I have absolutely no problem with Appendix L when it comes to the commercial. I have no problem with new residential. But I just see Ojai with the inventory of the housing stock that we have, where potentially you could have to retrofit sprinklers into a 200 or 300, because of a 200 or 300 square foot addition, you'd have to retrofit it into a 70-year-old building as cost prohibitive. And we're not even talking about necessarily the connection. I don't know what it costs to connect. I know that I have a client in a commercial situation where it's going to cost $50,000 to connect to the water line. Well, I don't know whether it's the same impact on a residential structure. Okay. And if there is no charge, then I apologize for that. But I can tell you that if I owned a 1,200 square foot bungalow, which are all over our town, that had walls that were made of whatever they used to be made of, not even drywall, lath and plaster, whatever it happened to be, and I wanted to add a bedroom that was another 150 or 200 square feet, maybe 300 square feet, and that triggered the 50%. To be able to then have to put sprinklers in that little bungalow, to me, doesn't make sense for Ojai, and it doesn't make sense to the homeowner.
So my understanding is that it has to be both 50%
Yes.
and 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, your example of having a 1,200 square foot and adding 150 square foot does not trigger sprinklers.
So you're saying that the 50% doesn't come into it until it's
Past 1,000 square feet.
past 1,000 square feet.
Correct.
So if you have a 3,000 square foot house, you don't have to sprinkler it until you're going to be doing a 1,500 square foot?
That's correct.
A 1,500 square foot addition? Okay.
You have to have 1,000 square foot and 50%. A 1,200 square foot with a 150 foot addition does not trigger a sprinkler. That's why I said earlier, you're talking about a major addition to get to that level. We're not talking about small little bungalow addition or things like that. We're talking about a major addition.
Okay.
So it's actually these two exceptions right here. That's.
These two?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
They're excluded.
Councilmember Laura, do you have any comments,
Yeah,
questions?
Madam Mayor, absolutely appreciate, the time and effort that the fire district has put, the fire marshal, and obviously our appeals board. I cannot say how much of an education this has been for me in analyzing whether Appendix L will really benefit our community. Now, I share a different perspective as my colleague, Council Member Blatz, in the fact that we are putting a number on sprinklers when it comes to retrofitting. And if they save lives, the ones that add less square footage and percentage on their house are not going to have that opportunity of adding sprinklers. Unless they decide to do it for themselves. So I have the concept of the whole Appendix L and the policy where it comes in, it kind of bothers me because we're saying if you add small additions, you don't have to do it. And I would like to go into the mindset of encouraging it even more and more for this community and finding ways that we could encourage more people, because it seems like this Appendix L isn't going to trigger until you add a huge addition, which rarely happens in Ojai. And I think that to me, it's not really benefiting Ojai, other than being consistent with the rest of the county, and trying to find out why the appeals board, whether it was because of the cost efficiency or whether there's other issues. I feel like those are separate issues that we should deal with and we should talk about in this community and open it to the public, and hopefully have the representation of the fire district and other organizations. But as it stands now, I just don't see it benefiting that many people here in Ojai unless they're going to really build a huge addition. And to me, we're just setting a price tag on that. And that's why I just feel like for right now, Appendix L does not fit who Ojai is. So,
if I understand correctly, so just want to make sure. What you're saying is that for City of Ojai, you rather see any small additions trigger fire sprinklers throughout the house?
well, I rather us encourage it and see more people have fire sprinklers because it does save lives. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but by adding Appendix L, it really doesn't force anyone to do it unless you're really doing a huge addition. Is that correct?
That's correct. Again, I'm trying to say, encouragement, we encourage everybody every day. I'm just trying to understand what you're saying is addition. You're saying is even small additions you rather see trigger fire sprinklers throughout the house. The example that Councilmember Blatz brought up about 1,500 or 1,200 square foot structure, adding 150 would require sprinklers. You're saying you rather see that entire structure be sprinklered.
If we're really advertising the safety of sprinklers, yes.
That comes to the cost benefit that we were talking about earlier, Mr. Wyrick was talking about.
And that's why I said I share a different perspective than my colleagues do. And it's the extreme, I think, on the other end, that we are putting a price tag.
But if I may give you a different perspective.
It's a division of the fire code.
So what you're saying is that Appendix L as it sits, it doesn't benefit Ojai because you rather see more restriction, addition.
Well, I rather word it the different way because it doesn't impact as many people.
Correct. But if we don't adopt Appendix L as it is, then what you're doing is, in essence, for time being, you can have as big of an addition you want without sprinklers. And then what you're proposing has to go through the ordinance. It has to be done through the city. So that's...
Yeah, and I feel pretty confident. I know that by not doing this, I feel confident of what I hear from the appeals board that we do need to focus on this a little bit more. And unfortunately, we do need to look at it and see how it really fits Ojai. And that's what I think that I've been hearing from them is that, okay, well, maybe, and it's not necessarily on clearance. I don't think their issue is doing 200 feet. It's just maybe it's time for us to really take a good reality check and see what we need to do to prevent other fires for this community. Not saying that we're the experts, but maybe working with the fire district, which I hope we can. So
it's just that it's going to affect the many structures that you were trying to avoid.
Thank you.
Doing that. So.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Well, I think there was a little miscommunication. I think basically that Councilman Lara was saying encourage people. You said that, you want an ordinance that makes it a legal requirement. That's quite different than what he was saying. You were talking about encouragement, not a requirement.
Yeah, we do that all the time.
They encourage all the time. I agree.
Okay, I'm getting eager to wrap this up.
I'm sure.
What time do we not bring up new items?
10:30.
9:30.
Councilmember Clapp, any other comments, questions?
No.
Councilmember Blatz? Are we talked out? Okay, council's pleasure? Council doesn't have a pleasure.
I'll take a stab at it because I feel like we really need to, like you said, wrap this up. And this is a discussion item. So this is not an action item, right?
Yes, it is.
Or this is an action item.
Let me read the staff's recommendation, which I don't quite agree with. But the staff recommendation is to recommend that the city council direct staff to work with the Ventura County Fire Protection District to modify ordinance number 28 Appendix L, incorporating modifications less restrictive as to when fire sprinklers and other related regulations are required. That's the staff's recommendation. Can that be done?
Madam Mayor, members of the council,
The impression
we can.
I got from the fire district is that it couldn't.
I guess I have a question for the fire marshal.
Okay.
The statute says that we may ratify, reject, or modify. I guess I have a hypothetical question for the fire department. If we were to return with a different resolution that had different language regarding the exceptions for the retrofitting, I don't know what those are yet. That's what I think the conversation would be. And we adopted it as modified, what would the fire department do?
Again,
because the state law says we may modify.
I think, I don't have all the legal answers, and I don't know exactly how this process is going to work. My understanding is that taking the Appendix L out of the ordinance and making it less restrictive is basically done by the city in the city municipal courts, because at that point it becomes the city enforcement. City has a control over the appendix. They trigger the sprinklers when they feel is necessary, rather than being in the ordinance and kind of a legality, where is the best to apply it. And I have no legal background, so I don't know.
And Madam Mayor, I'm not totally sure either. The statute says we may modify it. Obviously, this is still an ordinance of the fire district. And we can't make them enforce a law that they didn't adopt. I'm not sure that when the legislature wrote this section of the Health and Safety Code dealing with this particular issue, this process regarding the fire sprinklers is a unique section of the Health and Safety Code regarding modifications to the state codes. And it's only one that requires the ratification of member agencies. So I'm not sure what it is. So I think the best approach would be, let me give you two things. Procedurally, tonight, if you don't want to take the action to ratify Appendix L, I think the appropriate motion would be to table the item. That basically, under the Roberts we've adopted, that basically kills something by tabling it. Because you don't need no action is what you would want to do, and no action would be a tabling. Or you could direct staff to explore what a modified Appendix L in some format that reflects whatever local standards we'd like to have regarding retrofit. I guess it's still retrofitting seems to be the issue, and bring it back in an appropriate format, whether the fire district be willing to adopt a modified Appendix L for Ojai, or we would amend our home fire code when we adopt the building code. For ourselves. But tonight, if you don't want to do anything regarding ratifying Appendix L, then the motion would be to table.
Madam Mayor, I have a real quick comment.
Yes.
I may sound like an idiot here. I'm tired, but it seems to me that a lot of this has come up because of concern that it would be an undue burden for retrofitting the second dwelling units and thus impede the process of getting second dwelling units permitted. But my understanding is this ordinance doesn't require anything be retrofitted under 1,000 square feet. And most of these units are going to be 1,000 square feet or under, most likely. So that being said, I don't see why we don't just approve it. And also, if somebody's putting 1,000 square foot addition on their home, and it's $60,000 to $80,000 per square foot, you're talking $60 or $80 a square foot, you're talking $60,000 to $80,000 for 1,000 square foot addition to your home, and a potential in new construction of only $2 a square foot, an additional $2,000 just to put the sprinkler unit in. That is very minor investment in a $60,000 to $80,000 remodel to your home. So I'm really starting to struggle with why this has been dragging on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm getting tired of it. I don't want to spend any more staff time on it.
I could not agree with you more.
I'm tired of
We
it.
have spent a fortune of staff
Ridiculous.
time.
And
We have
wasting these
had our
gentlemen's
chief
time.
here. I know. I really,
Embarrassed.
I'm in favor of adopting it, frankly. I'm not in favor of tabling it at all. I think we have spent a zillion number of hours on it, so I do not see that. We're not talking about our little cottage, going to have to retrofit. If they want to put in another 400 square feet and the cottage is 1,200, that's not going to trigger anything. It's just for the majority of old homes, it's just going to trigger it won't trigger anything.
Very,
Because their
very large
additions are
remodels,
very,
that's it.
very, are very small.
Let's get it in perspective
Let's get this
financially.
over with,
I'm
please, no more time.
Okay.
So let's make a motion.
Wait,
I
just a
move to
second,
pass
just a
Amendment L. I would like to make a motion.
Because
Yes, he did.
Councilmember
Yes.
Laura was proposing to make a motion.
Yes.
So I'm going to go back over
Sure.
here and see
Go
where he
ahead.
is with that.
Fine.
Madam Mayor, and I appreciate you. I just was the same. I was the same question you were going to ask. I wanted to hear from staff if we were to send it back. If we, what the process would be if we were. I guess I was just struggling because I felt that for me, Appendix L does not benefit Ojai. I think that it would be smart for us to really see what benefits Ojai and what the appropriate process would be. Then that would allow me to develop my motion in my thinking. But I mean.
Okay, do you want to pass, oh, my eye. Do you want us to go over to Councilmember Clapp, who was prepared to make a motion?
Well, yeah, I'll hear her motion and see what she's say.
I move to, oh boy, how do I construct this? Adopt the, but the resolution has it going. Okay, help, yes, please.
What the fire district is recommending is that you adopt this resolution.
3-15. Okay, I move to ratify Ventura County Fire Protection District Ordinance Number 28, Appendix L, pertaining to building standards for application within the jurisdictional boundaries of the city.
I second that.
Roll call?
Blatz?
No.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
No.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
No.
All right, Madam Mayor, I'm proposed to make another motion. I say we ratify all portions pertaining to commercial construction, commercial remodels, residential new construction in Appendix L, and modify it not to include any residential remodels.
Second.
Open for discussion. So did you, was your second recommendation, was it for new remodels on?
No, it would not be required on any remodel to, regardless of its size, to include sprinklers. Just residential remodels. Ratify the Appendix L in every respect, except remove the requirement for any sprinklers in residential remodels, regardless of size.
But that, we would have to change the name. It's no longer Appendix L.
Well, I'm saying we modify it.
Okay.
And if the county doesn't want to enforce it, we can deal with it. Mr. Fletcher has indicated we can either approve, we can ratify, we can deny, or modify. My motion is to modify it.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, if I could ask the maker of the motion, I think the best format to do that would be to direct the clerk to modify this proposed resolution with the language that you have provided. And we will, if passed, then modify the resolution and
Okay.
forward it back to the district.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fletcher. Then that's,
Okay, are
my
you
motion
clear
is
on
to,
that?
okay, instruct the clerk to modify the language in Appendix L as I previously stated.
And the second agrees with that.
Okay.
Any more? No more comments. Roll call.
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Strobel? Laura?
No.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes.
Pass it.
It is almost 10 after 10. The next, I think we could cover the next item on our agenda.
We have to listen to election.
Pardon?
So we have to.
Yes.
Yes, we do have to. The next item on our agenda for discussion is the November 4th, 2014 City of Ojai's general municipal election. Mr. Clark?
City clerk will handle this.
I'll keep it brief. Before you this evening are the resolutions calling the November 2014 election and asking Ventura County Board of Supervisors to authorize the Registrar of Voters to provide certain services. Also, at the March 11th meeting, the City Council directed staff to prepare the resolutions that are necessary to place on the November ballot the questions of whether or not the City of Ojai should have a directly elected mayor and whether the mayor's term should be 2 or 4 years. The city must submit the resolutions calling the election and asking the Registrar of Voters for help and submitting the ballot language by June 30th of 2014. If the council approves placing the question of an elected mayor on the ballot, then there are several options to consider regarding ballot arguments and rebuttals. The city council as a body could approve a ballot argument in favor and have 1 or 2 draft language for consideration at another meeting. The city council could authorize 1 or more members to submit arguments with no further review. The city council could choose not to submit arguments, which would allow qualified voters to submit, and the city clerk would pick one to be in the ballot. The city council can also provide for rebuttal arguments following the similar process as above, or provide for no rebuttal arguments. It is recommended that the city council discuss arguments for and against the questions and decide if it will submit consensus arguments as a body. If not, then it is recommended the council authorize 1 or more of its members to submit arguments. Before you this evening is all the resolutions, and when you go to make a motion, instead of reading each one, you could just say adopt as staff's recommendation, or you can separate them out and adopt them separately. I'm open for questions. Are the city attorney or city managers here?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to discuss item numbers, the recommendations number 3, 4, and 5 separately than 1 and 2.
Okay. Okay, recommendation 1 is basically to consolidate the city general municipal election with the statewide gubernatorial general election. And recommendation number 2 is to establish candidate statements. So I think we could, let's entertain a motion to include recommendation 1 and 2.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Latz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. Recommendation 3 is submitting to the electors the question related to making the office of the mayor elected. Let's go there. Any comments, questions on?
Madam Mayor, my only question is, I thought the council had already approved that.
Apparently, I questioned it, and I was told by Mr. Clark that we had not, so I'd like to hear his statement. I was convinced, but he needs to talk to the rest of you about it.
So, my understanding is that the council directed us to prepare these resolutions and bring them back for your consideration. So you still have to adopt the resolutions in
Right.
order to get it on the ballot.
Okay, if there's, let's go to recommendation number 3. I'll entertain a motion to consider. Okay.
Can I talk about
Sure.
number 3? Well, I read this, I looked at it, I asked for information, and apparently the election code says if you're running for mayor, you just run for mayor. You cannot also run for a city council seat.
Correct.
So in other words, if, let's say, we have a group of 5, so we have one person decides to who is experienced and been on the council, has to decide whether to run for council or mayor. If there's other candidates who are running for mayor, let's say, they're not within the city council or wherever they're from, and they win, then the person who is not the mayor, who was a city council member, is stuck. They're off the city council. The other question I have is you could have a person who runs for mayor and wins, who has never spent a day in City Hall, who knows nothing about how we run our meetings, who basically has loves Ojai and works, and suddenly is now the mayor of our town. So to me, I find that a bit disconcerting, because what we have now is the rotational membership means that you have a brand-new person on council, and when it comes time for them to be mayor, and if the council elects them to be mayor, then they've had a number of years of experience in terms of what we do, what the laws say, etc. And now with the direct elected mayor, we may have someone who knows nothing about that. And also it seems that you can have what's called a strong mayor, and basically a strong mayor basically shares the job with the city manager of running the city, perhaps gives up their day job and is now full-time mayor of Ojai. And runs with, basically is not only making policy, which is what we do, but now is also carrying out policy. I mean, that all disturbs me. That's a huge difference from what we have. The only cities that have a directly elected mayor like that are really big, big places. San Jose, San Francisco. How do we, I think what we have is not broken. I think people, just to lose a councilman because they'd like to run for mayor and they lose the election and then that councilman is gone. They can't run for council and mayor.
Correct.
So when I read all this, I became more and more convinced that this is a big mistake for our little town. Also, what about, suddenly you have a mayor, okay, and the mayor has more responsibility, and he has more clout, and the way we have it now, we're very collegial. All 5 of us, even whoever is mayor, we don't feel that we have any more votes or any more clout. And with this system, it could change. You may actually have a mayor who, for whatever the public, though you mentioned, recognizing the mayor, but do we really want a mayor who has more power than the other city council members? That's another question that comes up. So after hearing all this and reading about it, there's a big write-up about the Sunnyvale and how they've struggled with this over and over again. So to me, in our little town of, how many, are we 9,000 people or something? With our budget and all, I like the collegial feel. I feel that you get the benefit of experience when you get to sit in the mayor's seat. And I'm very concerned that we'll have someone who runs for mayor, gets elected, has more power than the rest of the city council. And basically, they have no experience in government or laws or any of that. And we have lost a city council member who ran for that seat because they had to run for either a mayor or they had to run for city council. So that means we have 2 elections on the board. You can either run for the 4, within a pool of 4 for city council for whoever's up, or you have to run for mayor. Or somebody in the community decides to run for mayor. I don't see how this benefits Ojai in the least, so I think I'm done with my spiel.
Okay, and later on the recommendations, we recommend someone to write rebuttals. I think Mayor Pro Tem Smith would be good for that. But as far as
To be mayor, how do you like that?
But as far as recommendation number 3, the city council did direct staff to prepare the resolution and bring it back in its proper form. If no one else wants to make a motion, I will. Okay, and we're going to do it briefly like our city clerk recommended. I make a motion to adopt resolution, etc., recommendation number 3.
Second.
Roll call.
Wait a second, does that mean it's going to be on the ballot then?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, whether or not it passes is a different matter.
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
No.
Lara?
Yes.
Smith?
No.
Strobel?
Yes.
Passes.
Recommendation number 4 is, if desired, adopt the resolution providing for the filing of rebuttal arguments for the city measure submitted at municipal elections.
Madam Mayor, I guess my only question to that is, it says rebuttal arguments. I'm not really sure how that's done. I mean, you see in the election pamphlet, when there's measures on the ballot, you'll have a rebuttal and you'll have an argument for and an argument against. Are you suggesting by this, Mr. Clark, that we entertain several rebuttal arguments?
I'm actually a little bit confused myself. I think that one thing that you need to do is you need to determine if the city council or a member of the city council is going to submit arguments in favor of the ballot measure. Isn't that what the resolution should say?
Yes.
And if not, then automatically by action of law, members of the public are allowed to submit arguments, and the city clerk chooses which argument to put on the ballot. So one question that's before you, and I think it really should be addressed here, is does the city council as a whole, probably not though, does the city council as a whole want to submit a ballot argument, or does the city council want to designate one or more of its members to write a ballot argument? A second question is, do you...
Before you go to the second question,
Yes, ma'am.
I would prefer that the public write their arguments for, against, submit it to the city clerk. She choose what goes on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so if you choose not to either write it as a council or designate a member, that's what will happen.
Why don't we have a motion on whether or not we want to designate council members to write rebuttal arguments for the purposes of having it on the ballot, and I'll make that motion. And I will make the motion that we do.
I think
Actually, Madam Mayor, I think first the motion should be arguments for.
Okay, arguments for. And I will make the motion that we do not do that.
I have a question. Is it the city clerk's job, when she gets these arguments for and against, to basically look at them for accuracy? Or
No.
can people say anything they darn please?
The clerk can, telling you there's actually a case about the clerk cannot modify them in any fashion. It's up, they are submitted, the public, after they've been submitted, members of the public can review the arguments, and then the public can challenge the arguments, and there's actually a litigation process. So no, the city does not exercise any substantive control. All the clerk does is, under state law, there's a hierarchy. If you have multiple arguments submitted, there's a hierarchy of which one gets published. But there's no substantive review whatsoever. And further, once they're submitted, they can be withdrawn, but they can't be modified.
So we could have someone write a group of the public write an argument against or something and say this will cause an invasion from Martians and whatever else, and that's going to land up in the ballot?
That's a question, would become a question for the clerk. It'd be a question for the
Clerk thought that was the
court.
proper argument, yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to give the clerk a little more
Okay.
credit than that. I have a motion on the
No,
floor
but you say you
that
can
I would
write
appreciate, I would appreciate having.
Did you get a second?
I'll second.
No, I did not get
I'll
a second. And the motion is not to have one of us do anything in favor of it.
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp? Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes.
Then I will make an equal motion that we do not have someone on the council make an argument against the measure.
Second.
Are you getting the drift of what we're after here? Okay.
Favoring.
Second?
Laura seconded.
Okay.
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes.
So
No,
I think my understanding, and again, I'd look to Rhonda to check me on this, is that you also have the option of deciding whether or not there will be rebuttal arguments at all.
Or not yet.
And I would make a motion that we accept, do I have to do it as favor and against, or just say we will accept rebuttal arguments either for or against, and against the motion from the public?
Yes, that's the resolution before you, is a resolution authorizing and directing the clerk to accept rebuttal arguments from both sides.
Thank you, that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, and do we need to do, oh, sure, let's, recommendation number 5, I would move to direct staff to prepare the appropriate documents and submit to the County of Ventura.
I'll modify,
What?
well, we don't have a vote on my motion yet. I was going to modify it, but I think that really goes to everything that we've, so
Yes.
let's vote on mine first.
Oh, sorry.
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Well, it's
Laura?
tricky.
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes.
Now you can make your, now you can make your motion.
And hold it, I'm tired of being on this treadmill. I have a question. It's 22 minutes, or 26,
28 minutes.
I'll get it. We're getting a little tired, but a couple of things I think we should cover, such as item number 1, which is the recommended appointment to the Planning Commission, and as the agency, the consent calendar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would recommend that I put those 2 items before the council and the board. See, I'm starting to stutter.
She's tired.
That we have those 2 items come before the council and the agency and go home.
Okay.
And before we go home, perhaps we can decide, it's also important that we begin the budget processes.
Okay.
So, yes.
So can
Well,
we?
Madam Mayor, for expediency, I will make a motion that we entertain to accept agenda items past 10:30 tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
Second. Roll call.
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp? Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. All right, I would like to skip down to item number 7.
Okay, Madam Mayor?
Yes?
I believe that you had started to make a motion with regard to directing staff to send our actions
I
to
was
the
just gonna
county.
say.
Okay, back to item 4. I make a motion to direct staff to prepare the appropriate documents and submit them to the County of Ventura.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right.
Oh, I don't think I voted. Aye. All right, now I'd like to go to item 7, which is city council appointment to the Ojai Planning Commission. That didn't exactly read right. The subcommittee of Councilmember Laura, Commission Chair Merck, and myself interviewed 6 excellent candidates. We did the interviews open in public. We did the deliberations open in public. We each chose our top 2 choices, and the same name ran through all 3 of those. Not always as number 1, but at least either at 1 or 2. And so the subcommittee would like to recommend the city council ratify, where am I here? Ratify the, I know, but oh, here we go. Ratify the appointment of McAdam Lajowski as Planning Commissioner. Yes, time to go home.
Second.
Roll call. Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. And at this point, I would like to recess as the city council and convene as the Ojai Redevelopment Successor Agency. Consent calendar items A and B. Any questions, comments? Any motions?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve consent calendars item A and B.
Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. Okay, now we can kind of go back. The next item on our agenda is options to address no parking compliance on street sweeping days. And the next item is our budget. Is that something we want to? What?
Oh, is this our new guy?
Yeah.
Oh, hi there.
I would really like to be introduced.
Well,
please
come up and just say hello. This is McAdam Lajowski.
Well, thank you. I look forward to working with you and serving the people of Ojai.
Thank you very much.
We're delighted with your selection.
I have great respect for what you all have gone through this evening. But thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, do we want to take up another agenda item? Or do we want to adjourn this meeting to some point in time?
I don't think that the street sweeping is time sensitive, so we could carry that over to the next meeting. On the budget, I don't think I need to make the presentation now, but I'd appreciate if you approve the schedule, which is,
Okay. Well, this is getting really easy. All right, so we're going to put the street sweeping options over until the next meeting.
yes.
Do we need any kind of motion for that?
No, I'll do that automatically.
Okay, and that brings us to the fiscal year 2014-15 budget. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. The schedule that I'm proposing for the budget is exactly the same as the schedule we had last year. Last year, we had a couple of workshops prior to the May and June meetings, and that seemed to be sufficient. We also have a budget hearing, at which time we can do more budget review, and then finally the budget adoption. So it actually comes back to about 4 different times. We would invite the commissions to attend the workshops to present their budget ideas, and have each of the departments make their presentations. I also have a presentation that I was going to make tonight, but I can easily make that at the first workshop. So.
And I know I read it, but where is the schedule?
It's on the first
here it
page.
is.
Yeah, so starting on really on May 27th, we would have a budget workshop at 6 o'clock. Then on June 10th, we'd also have a budget workshop at 6 o'clock. If we don't finish everything, we have a additional possibility on June 17th, and then we have an adoption on June 24th.
Wow, is our budget up to 11 million now?
Yeah.
When I started at this, on council, our budget, I think, was 6 million.
Send a thank you note to the end.
And I do have a comment. I have read the budget, and I appreciate the way it was written. It gave me my storyline in the beginning, and then it gave me all the numbers to back it up. Made it very easy for me to read, very comprehensive, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
Mr. Clark, the meeting on June the 10th, that's going to be a special meeting? Is that?
I think that's our regular
Is
first
that our
meeting in
regular
June.
meeting of the
Yeah.
month? Okay.
The only special meeting would be June 17th, and that's only if we need it.
Okay.
And Mr. Wyrick had put in a speaker card for item 4, but it's too late. We have moved on. You also have a speaker card from item 6. You were, all right.
I had requested, or suggested a spreadsheet on the consultants consolidated. I was just asking when that might be done.
So I'll bring that forward at one of the budget workshops.
Okay, so it'd be available at the
Depends,
workshops?
it depends how quickly I can put it together.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure it was still in the plan of work.
Yeah.
And it would, I think it's an important issue, an important kind of bird's eye view for the council on that whole issue of consultants. So as long as it's in the work plan, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And that's Mr. Warwick's
Oh, thank you.
comments on the different items. I told you I'd give you mine.
Thank you.
I have given you mine.
Mr. Clark, do you need approval of the budget?
Of the schedule, yes.
The schedule, okay. I move that we approve the schedule as outlined in the staff report on page 6-1 under executive summary.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, have we covered all of the issues?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Reports from council members? I'll just comment that it was delightful at the Parks and Rec meeting Saturday. It was like Disneyland out there. They did a great job.
It was terrific. What a great day.
No other comments? Okay, report from city manager.
I have nothing.
We have no closed sessions. No further comments. Mr. Grant, would you like to make a comment? No?
Sure, yeah, that'd be a good one.
What?
And Rhonda has an announcement, too.
Oh, that's right.
Good evening, and I just want to mention quickly that it took us quite a while to get there, but the paving is about to occur. We're closing in on you'll notice all the manholes throughout the city, streets that are being paved were just lowered, and now we will be grinding the streets next week. And so we're milling all the streets down 1.25 inches, and then we're paving after that. So in the next 3 weeks, you'll see all the paving complete, as well as and then the follow-up is all the striping. So there is an end in sight. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a good light. That's it.
Yeah.
The finance director have any comments? No, thank you. Okay. No further comments?
Wait.
Oh.
I would just like to
Clerk Bayshore.
mention that we have a new employee in the back, Nick Zafko is our new video technician. Carol left the city on May 8th, and I'll hopefully have her come back and say a few words, but she says say hi and bye, and she loved her years of service here. So And the other thing is Monday, May 19th is the last day to register to vote in the June 3rd election. I have registration forms here at the City Hall. I made a little voting center. And then also before you this evening was a City Records press release that's now available in the lobby. Our computer's set up and ready to go, and I'm excited about people coming in and training them how to look up documents. So, pass the word.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Meeting adjourned.